everybody. We welcome you to a special edition, National Signing Day 2019, brought to us by WVU Medicine. I'm Tony Caridi, joined, which way you want to go, the signal caller, Jed Drenning, and Wolfman Dale Wolfley. We are with you here live at the WVU Pushcar Center, Mountaineer Football Complex, talking about 2019's signing day. We'll hear a bunch of information coming your way over the next 2 hours as WVU finalizes this class, which began in December. Obviously, a lot has changed. A coaching change has taken place. New staff members will be introducing some of those folks with us over the next couple of hours. Jed, opening observation as to inheriting a team in the midst of a recruiting class.
Typically, Tony, in times of transition, coaching transition, it's a little disjointed. But that's something that Coach Neil Brown has, it seems so far, been able to navigate pretty well. His first handful of weeks in the saddle, basically keeping the class as it was in December intact, adding some more kids the last couple weeks, even today. So by and large, in coaching transitions, I would say you have to give this thing a very stellar grade.
All right, Wolfman, what's your first take?
You know, TC, when you think about this, 33 years ago in 1986, I was here signing. Where I was at back then, 33 years ago, you know, and who would have thought 33 years ago that I'd be sitting next to you two, being blessed, to talk about this 2019 class. This is a day that can affect the rest of many of their lives. And just the importance of that and the idea that they became Mountaineers, the best decision that I've ever made. And I'm here to prove it. Living proof, TC.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot to get into. As I said, a lot of staff changes, and when we come back, our first guest will be Brian Bennett. He is the new Director of Player Personnel for the Mountaineers. We'll get his first take. All of that and more coming up after this from WVU Medicine.
Big 12, our champion is determined by who we play, not by who we don't play. The only conference where every team plays everyone. A conference with no divisions that guarantees the top 2 teams play annually in our championship game. And the most challenging path to the college football playoff. Every game matters.
Incredible discipline, amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships, March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
From the Pushkar Center, we welcome you back in our National Signing Day 2019 show. Tony Caridi along with Dale Wolfley. As I said, we're going to have guests throughout the next 2 hours. We're going to lead you all the way up to Neil Brown's press conference, which will begin at 3 o'clock this afternoon. All right, so our first guest, please welcome in Brian Bennett. He is the new Director of Player Personnel for the Mountaineers. Brian, welcome into the show.
I appreciate it.
I mean, you being the first guest, I don't know if he knows that yet, Wolf, but you get a special set of prizes.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Including a barometer, which I'm sure you've always wanted to have. So let's jump in here now. This is kind of, we'll get into some players and talk about two of the signees that you guys have already brought in to this point today. But first off, let Mountaineer Nation know a little bit about you. Background, where you were, where you've been, and the thought of coming to West Virginia. Why was it the right choice?
Okay. Most recently, I was with Coach Brown for 4 years at Troy. Had a really, really good run over those 4 years with him there. Before that, I worked for who's the now head coach at South Florida, Charlie Strong, for I think 7 years. Prior to that, worked with him all the way back to I was a student assistant for him at Florida. Went on to be a GA with him at Louisville, and then analyst for him at Texas. Went from there and got an opportunity just through someone I knew at Troy who had just been hired on. Got an opportunity to interview with Coach Brown, and after spending a day with him, would have carried the U-Haul myself to Troy to work for him. So,
What was it that you liked?
that was hard. It's a hard thing to lump into one little statement, but I spent the entire day with him. It wasn't just an interview. I showed up in a suit and tried to put my best foot forward, but it wasn't that. We actually drove over to his house that he was doing a renovation on, got to see that. Went around, he took me to a little down-home restaurant in town. It was a different feel. He was young, he was energetic, and you could tell spending that first day with him how special he was.
Yeah. With that being said, then obviously it was a no-brainer when he said, come to Morgantown.
Oh yeah, I'd done the same thing. If he had told me I had to carry the U-Haul, I'd have done it.
You know, Brian, when you're talking about one day is all it really took for you to jump on the banner, and with Coach Brown and the whole staff grinding right off the bat to keep all these recruits West Virginia has signed already, that's pretty impressive. I mean, to me, that seems like the same effect that you had with Coach Brown, he had on the recruits that we've already signed.
It is. And the thing you'll learn about Neil, and the thing you'll see about him moving forward is how genuine of a person he is, and how his care and love for people is really, really obvious the first time you ever speak to him. Getting to know those kids was the number one priority for him. Those guys that signed here was the number one priority for him as soon as he took this job. I mean, he got on the phone with them. He was Twitter messaging them to get their numbers so he'd get on the phone with them, talk to them, make sure they were fine. It was his two goals were to make sure our guys at Troy were fine, make sure he left that place the right way, and to make sure the guys here on the team and the guys that we had signed were in a good position and felt comfortable with them.
Brian, define your job. The title is Director of Player Personnel. What's that entail?
A lot goes into it. The majority of what I do is early identification. Spend time trying to figure out who the best fit for us is, and who the guys that are gonna push our program forward the way we want it to be pushed forward. But I do a lot. I do a lot with visits. I do a lot with communication, organization of coaches while they're out on the road. Just a little bit of everything. Just anything that has to do with recruiting has gone through me.
Yeah, so it's been incredibly busy, obviously, since you guys. It's been 1 month. February, today is 6. They were hired on January 5, so it's been absolute chaos,
It's been
huh?
pretty chaotic. I haven't found a place to live yet, so that's what I've been doing all day
Small
today.
things. Don't worry about the small
You
things.
can always stay at my house.
I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, let's jump in here, Brian. Tell us a little bit about two of the guys that are already on the list. Jordan Jefferson is a big defensive lineman. Give us your background on him.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Jordan. You know, we have known Jordan for 2.5, 3 years. Have been recruiting him. We early identified him. He's from Navarre High School down in Panhandle, Florida. He is exceptionally strong. He's young for his grade.
Right.
He's almost a full year younger than most of the guys his grade level. He's an exceptionally strong, exceptionally explosive kid. You see it on his film. I mean, you feel bad for the offensive lineman he's playing against, and that's a good program down in Pensacola that he's on film against here. And Jordan's just explosive. His best football is ahead of him. He's a workhorse. He's quiet. Does it all right, man. His dad's become one of my quickly became one of my favorite people in recruiting. So I've really enjoyed getting to know that. I'm glad he's on board with us here.
When I look at him, when I break him down, and I've seen it, he's got that big can. I mean, you want a 3 technique, a 1 technique. You want one with a big can, and he's got it. And that's why he's so doggone explosive. I love his first step. He comes off with a flat back, and he uses his hands, which I know any defensive line coach, especially Coach Leslie, is really going to look forward to using that. And he seems to be a little bit more advanced.
Oh, that's for sure. His hands come out of the ground and into someone's body as quickly as anybody's I've seen at that level, it's a natural skill. That's something you're born with. You can teach it, you can get better at it, but you're born with those hands that move from the ground to somebody's body as quickly as possible. And if you can get your hands on people and your feet move first, you're going to win. And that's what he does really well. And then obviously you've seen pictures of him. He's as strong as anybody you'll see at his age in the country. He's unbelievably well-built kid.
All right, so let's continue on here. The other player, you talk about size and you talk about speed. You don't often see 6'5" safeties. In West Virginia, a while back, remember Robert Sands was here, and he went on to the NFL. We're talking about Roisin Lin, and here's another guy that you guys had a pre-existing relationship, correct?
Correct. So Roisin's another interesting one. We lost a coach just to another job during January while I was at Troy in a January recruiting period, and I actually took over for him on the road just to fill that gap for us, and I went down to Orlando and I spent a bunch of time, and I actually went by Cocoa High School, and one of the people I got to eyeball while I was there was Roisin. That's when we extended an offer that day, and it was good a year later that he was still on the market for us because he's a perfect fit for what we're trying to do athletically.
You mentioned his size, 6'5", 200. I was talking with Neil just a little bit ago. You guys project him out to be about 215, 220 over time, right?
I do. I think he can easily carry 220. He's a good frame. He's not a real broad guy, but he's super long, and I think he can carry 220 without losing an ounce of that athleticism.
At 6'5", I gotta tell you, I love him being out there in center field, just being able to run down the ball, see it, and you can tell from the film that he can actually, tackle an open field. So he actually runs. He's 6'2", and that's not always the case that you can say about a 6'5" guy. And obviously, he's got ball skills. You saw him at wide receiver, making some big catches. He caught a one-handed catch over his shoulder. He did a 360 turnaround over his shoulder. I mean, he really has some ball skills. The only thing, TC, is we got to keep Coach Hugs away from him.
He does look like he'd be a basketball player, doesn't he? He can cover a lot of ground really, really quickly. And the thing you see offensively that a lot of people don't really recognize is as a 6'5" guy, him to be able to slam his hips down, get his feet in the ground, and change direction in a route concept shows that he can bend, shows that he can change direction, which is what we think can make him a special defensive back.
And he stays back there, right? He stays as a safety regardless of growth as time goes on.
That's the plan. Oh yeah, for sure.
That is,
I think he can be a special safety.
Wow.
8'12", long and lanky. I mean, that's what you want to do to cover the field.
For sure.
Well, very good. Obviously, there's going to be another announcement later on this afternoon. We got some press conferences that are going on. You mentioned the word relationship several times already. Can you I think our listeners and viewers would be interested to know how you were able to re-recruit the kids that had already signed in December, right? You had to re-recruit a lot of those kids to make sure that the list stayed, and you didn't lose a one.
No, that's correct. I think those kids see it when they're made a priority. Kids know that. And those guys were absolutely made a priority. It was really, really important for them to stay in the fold and to be Mountaineers. So Coach Brown, obviously, those first couple of days communicated with them, getting them back on campus for an official visit, and letting them spend those 48 hours with us, getting their families around us. Coach Brown going on the road and making sure he saw every single one of them in their homes. He went and visited every single one, spent time with them. He did everything you could do in a 1 month period to build a relationship with those guys.
Yeah, and it worked.
Oh yeah.
And it absolutely worked. Well, good deal. First, Ryan Bennett conversation. I'm sure there will be a lot as time goes on. We appreciate your time, buddy.
Thank you.
Ryan Bennett, WVU's new Director of Player Personnel. We invite you to stay tuned. Jed Drenning joins us when we return, and we'll kind of break down this overall class. As we said, we had the first signing group in December. A couple more names added to the list today. We'll talk about that and more. Do stay with us. Our 2019 National Signing Day show continues from the Pushkar Center.
We
conquer mountains. But that's not why they call us Mountaineers. It's because we don't let anything stand in our way. We build what's never been built, seek cures for the incurable, and go first into undiscovered frontiers. We are Mountaineers, and impossible is just another mountain to climb.
The air feels different on fall Saturdays in West Virginia. Familiar roads lead us on early morning drives to a place where we feel alive. And traditions bring together a fierce fan base, united by the same passion: West Virginia football. As West Virginia's bank, we've been there and will continue to be there. United Bank, proud to be united with the Mountaineers.
The joy of being the best is unsurpassed in the only conference where regular season champions are determined the right way. Where everyone plays everyone. A conference with no divisions. A conference where every game matters. Whether it's the rich history of intense rivalries or the excitement of the newest ones, the Big 12 Conference, unsurpassed.
Swing and a high drive. That's headed to deep right field. That ball is going. That ball is gone. A homer, a two-run homer for Darius Hill.
West Virginia baseball is right around the corner. Catch the Mountaineers in Big 12 action against Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Kansas, and TCU, along with games against rivals Pitt, Marshall, and Penn State. Season tickets start as low as $105, and mini packages start at just $20. Log on to WVUGame.com or call 1-800-WVU-GAME today.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
Our 2019 recruiting special continues. We welcome you back in. Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning and Dale Wolfley. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll talk with WVU assistant coach on the offensive side, Chad Scott. We're with you until 3 o'clock when Neil Brown's press conference takes over right next door in the team room. What we'd like to do here in this segment is start to break down some of the players that have already signed with WVU, and we'll do it in alphabetical order. Guys, let's jump in here. We just talked about a defensive lineman there with Brian and Roisin Lin. Let's talk about another defensive lineman. This young man at 6'5", 240 pounds, Taj Alston. Which one wants to jump in? What do you like? Well, we'll go with you since offensive linemen used to hit defensive linemen. What do you like?
Well, I never liked those 6'5" guys because they certainly can use that leverage and swim moves on you. And that's what Taj Alston does. And if you watch him play and you look at him, he wants to trap the hand first and come with the swim on the outside. He's a natural pressure guy. He's long and he's lean. 6'5", 240 pounds. He's from Copiah Lincoln Community College. And when I talk about him with his coach, he said he's a yes or no, sir. He's high motor, and he's just a natural pass rusher. I don't know if we've had a natural pass rusher. And when you think about the multiple defensive front, Tony, this year in Jet, is we definitely need those outside defensive ends, that type of defensive end that can stand up. You can see that he goes sometimes from a 2-point stance, a 3-point stance, and he can go outside or inside.
Gifted kid, Wolf. You talked about it. When you talk to Coach Glenn Davis down there in that junior college league in Mississippi, they're going against premier talent on a weekly basis. So as an edge rusher, what you see on tape, beats him with a speed rush and sets him up for another inside move. He's a talented kid with a swim move, doesn't waste motion. He has the strength to knife inside through double teams, goes straight for the football. That's another knack that he has. Don't make the mistake of leaving him blocked on the backside or what you think's the backside. That's an automatic surefire TFL. Very quick first step. Inside makes him a handful even in short yardage. He always seems to gain the leverage advantage. Great reach, great anticipation. You better cut him when you run the quick game or he's going to get hands in the air. You're going to have batted footballs. He's athletic enough to chase you down from the backside. Great job setting the edge against the perimeter as a run support guy, which a lot of these talented pass rushers don't have that. But his coach raves about him, talks about his long frame, his big first step. But 4'7" kid with a football 4'7". There's a big difference. You guys know what I'm saying, and that's what Coach said. A football 4'7" plays full speed all the time, not allergic to the weight room either. So that's a kid that might even get in here, even at this advanced age, and put a couple more pounds on in the weight program.
Well, let's talk about that guy. So he is a junior college player. So unlike Roisin Lin, who is not going to immediately be called upon to play, if he can, that's fine. But let's face it, freshman, it's difficult to get out there. But here's a guy that was brought in to play immediately. How realistic is that?
I think he's going to have to be realistic because with this four-man defensive front, when they do use it, we need numbers. And he provides that number, and he has played a couple years at college, and he's excelled at that. As Jed was saying, he knows how to even set the point against the run, which is important because he uses his hands inside-out leverage, and that's how you win, and that's how he disengages and makes plays, as you can see in the film that we've been running. So, hey, Mike Joseph, this is your job right now to, this is where you and your staff step in, get this young man prepared, and get him some weight up, and you know what? And that's where the defensive line coach
even or odd, you can use edge rushers.
All right, let's jump into a linebacker right now. Let's talk Jared Bartlett right now. 6'2", 216-pounder, comes out of Collins High School, Sewanee, Georgia. What do you like?
Well, what I really like about him is that when you look at him, okay, he is 6'2", 216 pounds. And when you're watching here, okay, again, did you notice how he went and he rerouted the wide receiver from blocking, but then he cut, his center of gravity is low. So what does that mean? He can change direction and he comes right at you. And then what does he do? He weaponizes his shoulder, not the head, the shoulder. He knows how to tackle. And when he comes out to hit you, you're going down. And he certainly has the speed. Again, when you think about what does the Big 12, does the defense need in the Big 12 to succeed? Long, lanky. That's what this class is. And that's what's really exciting about it, because when I talked to his coach as well, he said, hey, he's got that Von Miller-esque tools. I'm like, well, wait a minute, Von Miller-esque tools, maybe we're talking a little bit high here, coach. He goes, no, what I'm talking about is he can rush the passer. He's a natural pass rusher, natural blitzer. You not always have natural blitzers, but he can also drop back in coverage, as you can see from the film.
Pass rushing mismatch off the edge, another edge rusher. Again, whether you're going to play an odd front, even front, the one thing you can always populate your defense with, you have room for edge rushers. He gets below the offensive tackle's hands. That's a leverage thing. Heads up as a player in zone coverage. What just talked about it. He's a dual threat. He's a run stopper. He's a pass rusher, but he can also play on the back end against the pass. Here's another thing about him. Comfortable as a green dog blitzer. That's something that's activated when you're in man coverage, but your man assignment doesn't go out in the route. Get on it. You see him sack the quarterback as a green dog blitzer. Reacts well to the flow of the play. He'll break off a blitz to pursue the ball versus the quick game. In other words, if you're running a perimeter screen, he'll diagnose that. He'll recognize it. He'll fly to the perimeter, and he'll make a play. Sometimes he'll even toy with the quarterback on a read zone, getting the quarterback to think it's safe to keep the football, go for the edge. It ends up in a TFL. Smart, athletic football player off the edge.
Want to jump
Open
in?
field tackler.
Oh, yeah.
He's solid. And I think when you look at the defensive guys that we have here, is if you look at their film, they know how to tackle in the open field. And that maybe is something that we need to improve upon a little bit here at WVU. And I think that these guys, being young, and the way that the new coaching staff is coming in and saying they're going to tackle every day in practice. If you want to be good at tackling, what do you got to do? You got to practice it, baby. And that's what I think is headed, and that's what I like about this class.
Put a tight end on him, Wolf. He's physical enough to hold the edge against a tight end, too.
Really
That's something
is.
else on tape that jumps out at you.
All right, let's jump over to offensive lineman now. Literally the biggest player on this recruiting list this year, 6 feet 7 inches tall, 310 pounds. Donovan Beaver is his name. We'll go to Wolf first, since he's an offensive lineman kind of guy. That's a big dude out there.
This offensive line, I couldn't even watch and see any pass protection in the highlights, but if you look at this guy, this offense averaged 7.2 yards per carry. And what they do, they come out, this big man, Tony, he's splat, he's a bigot. He's going to throw his body at you. Look at him come out and run, 6'7", 310 pounds, man. That's crazy. crazy with the way he bends his knees. Look at him, he throws it. Look at these guys, he morphs them. I mean, look at it, Tony. Honestly, he is what I call the splat man.
Let me ask you this. What could that translate to when you're in high school at 6'7", 310? Realistically, once he gets into the weight program, what's that end up at?
Well, really, up to me, is he's going to be a 330 pounder. 325, 330. I don't know about his size, if he's going to grow anymore in height. But look, if you look at his knee bend, if you watch him pull and run, I mean, there's a big man pulling and running. Now, he's just killing these guys because he's just so much bigger than them. But if you watch it, and he will finish the play and drive him down the ground to the whistle blows. Now, that's not everything you can always do with an offensive line. Do you play to the end of the whistle? And he does.
Physical brand of offense that they played down there at that high school, and they like to take their guards or take their size and move them to the interior. That's why he ended up playing guard and not tackle. They ran for 4,400 yards, they averaged over 7 yards a carry. They like to maul people, and that's what this guy is. He's a true road grader, and when you watch him on tape, he fires off the football with great pad level, very strong lower body. Don't blitz the A-gap because you're just going to vanish. I mean, that's what ends up happening. Well, if I saw him have a double A-gap blitz at one point, he engulfed the backer on his play side and threw him at the backer on the backside and tripped him up. He was just a dominant force. Now the question becomes, from a pass pro skill set standpoint, how does that translate to the next level? When you talk to head coach Eric Ludden, he said, here's what I believe. He has that protector mentality, because the truth of it's this: when you look at the game of football, the world's populated by three types of people. You're a sheep, you're a wolf, or you're a shepherd. The best O-linemen are shepherds. They protect and they take care of you. Nobody knows that better than Dale Wolfley. This kid has that mentality, so he has that protector attitude. Whether he stays at guard, whether you move him out to the tackle and see what happens with his feet, he has the protector attitude that I think is going to translate very, very well to the college level when he's asked to pass pro against talented pass rushers.
Wolf's going to go get his staff.
I'm going to tell you right now, throw on that tape, you'll just start laughing.
You will.
Because you just get giddy watching him just splatting these kids. Once again, it's going to be different when he gets to the next level. But he will grow, and he will get polished, and he will get in the weight program. I really like him.
Yeah. So we go from kids that are just getting into the program to someone who's already been in this program, who has practiced with the Mountaineers since last season, but he had to sit out after his transfer from Alabama. He does count on this year's class, and we're talking about VanDarius Cowan, and this is a guy that has the opportunity to make an immediate impact.
Well, he checks every single box from an athletic standpoint when you watch the tape. Especially you go back to his high school tape. He spent a lot of time in the box. He's athletic. He's relentless. The speed jumps off the tape. When you chase down the quarterback from the backside, he does it in a flash, and that shows the type of athleticism that he has. He would sometimes even overrun things and then still end up chasing the play down from behind. And here's something we haven't talked about with him or with some of these other kids. Look at special teams and how they can contribute there. From a special team standpoint, this is a kid, blocks off the edge. He comes down and kickoff coverage unit. Sometimes in time to recover the pooch kick, even you see on his highlight tape. But watch him, Wolf. Flies all over the football, not just tackle to tackle, sideline to sideline. He has that kind of speed.
All I can say is this, is that we know that Alabama, he's not going to play as a true freshman unless he's trusted. And he had played in 7 games with Alabama. And when you look at him, he's a physical freak. Okay, he plays like a physical freak, and you can see how he delivers punishment. He just doesn't want to go ahead and tackle you. He wants to make sure you know you've been hit. You know you're going down, and you're going down now. I mean, I'll tell you, 6'4", 233 pounds. He runs like a deer. He bends his knees. Again, I'm going to say this all day long. How do you go ahead and find all these guys that are pretty good already in open field tackling? That just is a big time for the Big 12.
Yeah. And the thing that stands out is the size that you just mentioned. At 6'4", 230, you'd have to go through a lot of Mountaineer rosters over the years to find the last time we've had guys at that size. They're hard to find, right? Go into the shopping mall anywhere and try to find 6'4", 230. They're hard to find, and then when they can run, you're special.
Like he's 190.
Exactly right.
And bend.
Yeah, so he'll be a name that you'll hear immediately this coming season. Well, do stay with us. Our signing day show continues. We've got a lot. We're with you up until 3 o'clock here. We'll be chatting with Mountaineer staff members, and then at 3 o'clock, the Neil Brown press conference right here at WVUsports.com. Stay with us. Mountaineer assistant coach Chad Scott on deck. He'll be with us when we return. Stay with us. Our signing day special brought to us by WVU Medicine continues right after this.
In the Big 12, our champion is determined by who we play, not by who we don't play. The only conference where every team plays everyone. A conference with no divisions that guarantees the top 2 teams play annually in our championship game. And the most challenging path to the college football playoff. Every game matters.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
Our 2019 National Signing Day show continues. We welcome you back in. We are inside the Push Car Center. Tony Caridi along with the signal caller, Jed Drenning, and please welcome to the show, Mountaineer assistant coach, Chad Scott. It's not like we just met him or anything like that. Yes, it is. So you're going to hear it for the very first time. Welcome in, man.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let's, before we get into kids and before we get into this recruiting cycle, a little background on you. Folks obviously are interested where you've been, thoughts about coming here to West Virginia.
Awesome. Well, first off, I'm from Plant City, Florida, which is right outside of Tampa. I've been to, when I started at Troy University with Coach Brown. First started at assistants, and I've been to Texas Tech University. Went to University of Kentucky, and I recently was at University of North Carolina, which is where I graduated from. And Coach Brown, called me, and being the person that I know he is, and the man of character that he is, and what he's going to bring to the table, it was a no-brainer to be able to come back and be a part of the staff with him.
Yeah, expand on that. And you're not the first, certainly, that says that about Neil. What does he have? He's got some special it. What is it?
Well, it's hard to describe. Like I say, he's a man of character first and foremost, and what he does to bring guys together and develop the camaraderie within the team, get the guys to not necessarily to care about one another. So when they're out there in the field of play, they're playing for one another. It's huge, and it all starts with what he does off the football field that allows those guys to do that on the football field to play.
Let me ask you this. You've been around Coach Brown for a long, long time. You guys go way back to ground zero of the air raid coaching tree out of Kentucky and all that crew that was down there. And it's been interesting to watch the evolution of what he's done with the offense, particularly on the run game side. Right. So now you step into a situation where you're inheriting a pretty talented room full of returning backs from last year. Right. 3 out of the last 4 years at Troy, 1,000-yard back. Talk about that dimension to this offense.
Well, it's all about attacking space. And obviously, you spread it out and you try to find ways to get your best playmakers in space. And like you said, you've had a couple 1,000-yard backs, that's went over 1,000 yards here in the last couple of years. But ultimately, when we first started out, you're slinging the ball all over the place. You're trying to make the explosive plays, which we're still going to create those explosive plays. But here in recent years, we've done a phenomenal job, recruiting the kind of running back that can make those same plays in space and give you those same explosive plays, handing it off to them that the receivers can make, catching the ball. And that's created just another dimension that's really, taking this offense to the next level.
The easy thing, Chad, would be, hey, we're air raid guys, and we're air raid guys, and we're going to stay air raid guys. Right. What were opposing defenses starting to do that made the next evolutionary step to say, hey, guys, we got to get back to running this thing?
Play off and put, less numbers in the box and really just, feel like, I feel like if they just take the pass game away, that we won't be able to run the ball as effectively. Right. We won't be patient enough to run the ball as effectively, which is what most defensive guys think. The offensive guys going to get kind of antsy, impatient, and want to throw the ball downfield. So one of the things I think we've done a phenomenal job at is just understanding to do what it takes to win the football game and close the football game out. And a lot of times that's just been running the ball. If you watch what Troy did 2 years ago when they beat LSU, just pounded the football. And that might have been some years back, we might not have done, as much as we've done here in the last couple of years. So
That's what I wanted to ask you about. He understands, and Neil understands complementary football. He looks at the game very globally.
Right.
He understands how the offense is interconnected with the defense, and the special team plays a role as well. When you guys marched into Baton Rouge, he pumped the brakes that week.
Yeah.
He conditioned himself to hold off on signaling the play into the play clock, got down to 20-25, okay, to help the defensive side of the football. And when you go back and watch that game, you guys ran the ball 42 times. You had a workhorse carry at 30 for almost 200. The result was, with 5 minutes to go, your defense, the Troy defense, had only been on the field for 46 snaps.
Yeah.
You don't do that without a room full of guys who can tote the mail.
Gotcha. Well, I say this now. I wasn't there with those guys when they won that game, but I know all about it. But that's one of the things, obviously when you head coach, and it's a little different being the head coach and the coordinator. When you're head coach, you understand we need to get out of this ball game and win this
That's
thing.
right.
Sometimes when you're a coordinator, you want to put in yards and the numbers and all that. And when you head guy, and and the win-loss column start to add up, different perspective. So the beauty of this thing is that you don't necessarily go into a game thinking I'm gonna throw the ball 50, 60 times. You don't necessarily go in a game thinking I'm gonna run the ball 50, 60 times. But as you get in the game and you realize what's working, what's been hard to, what are you doing that's hard to stop, defensively, you stick with it. And in that particular game, it was hard to stop the run game. And so they stuck with it. And that's what ultimately closed that game out. Now, I was at Troy years back, I want to say 2008.
Yes.
And we didn't close the game out.
Threw 72 times against
we
LSU.
We didn't close it out.
Blew a 31-3 lead. Learned from it.
We had a big lead, right? We
That's
didn't close
exactly
it out.
right.
Now, that time, coach was OC.
That was the difference between a head coach and an OC, wasn't it? That's exactly what you're talking about.
Difference between OC and the head coach. Now, years later, becomes a head coach. It's a little different now.
Yeah.
Got that lead now. I need to run the football because they're struggling to stop that. So that's where it's kind of evolved to, obviously just understand that, we do want to attack space. We do want to put playmakers in space. But as you get within the confines of the game and, you're in certain situations, just understanding, what we need to do to close that game out.
Because college football is a 4 or 5 year cycle, rooms change. So some years you'll go into your room and you're going to go, we're starting this year with a lot of young guys.
Right.
You're coming into a buffet right now that's full.
Right.
And so how are you going to begin the process? This spring practice season, which is about to begin not too long from now, what is your goal going into spring with the kids that have all played a lot of football and run the ball a lot here?
Right. Well, first of all, not screw them up. That's the biggest thing. I am coming to a fortunate situation where it's a room full of talent. The biggest thing for me is obviously, do what I've been doing thus far since I've been here is, bring them all in one-on-one and get the opportunity to get to know them, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, know the things that they want to continue, what they want to improve on going into the fall. And, ultimately, so coming out this particular spring is all the things that those guys say were their strengths and the things that they say were their weaknesses that they want to improve on is to, at the end of spring, have worked on that, and maybe those weaknesses become strengths going into the fall.
And you jumped into this thing, obviously, drinking straight out of a fire hose, right? Absolutely. We're talking about the personnel you're inheriting. Right. You're lucky to have met them at this point, much less watch them on tape a little bit. So from a recruiting standpoint, you guys been out and about paying the bills, okay? Where do you want to start talking about that? What type of kids? Who are you after? We've landed a heck of a class here. Who do you want to address?
Well, the first thing is when we first got here, it was just getting to know our team. We need to get to know our guys here first, which is, like you said, it's been fortunate that I've had the opportunity to actually sit down with those guys and talk to them about that because we want to focus on these guys first. We had a couple spots that we wanted to fill, most on defense. Obviously we got a big quarterback, was the biggest need for us, huge for us, and but we need a couple spots on defense. But it was to get to know these guys here first. And then get going on a recruit because recruit for us is all relationship based. And I just figure that, when you come in and you don't have to have a couple of weeks to, get to know some guys, you make a bunch of mistakes on that front end, and you look back 2-3 years later, you realize, man, we didn't know a lot about that particular kid, whereas we could have waited and got to know that kid over a certain amount of time to know exactly what we're getting.
Now, one kid that is already on the list that has already signed with the Mountaineers is Tony Mathis, a young man that comes out of the state of Florida. So I would imagine your first goal was, okay, I need to take a look and watch him on tape. What's your initial perception there?
Well, I tell you this is funny. So when I first got a job here, I came here, I signed the paperwork. I had a rental car, I had all of my bags in that rental car. I became official. I got back in that rental car and immediately went on the road and met with a receiver and met with Tony. Went and saw Tony in school. You watch his film and he has everything you look for. You look at him, he doesn't look that big and on that film he looks like a smaller back, like rocked up, and then you see him in person like, wow. You know, he moves as if he's a 5'8" guy, but has it all. You know, he got phenomenal lateral movement, which is huge. Be able to be effective between the tackle boxes. He's powerful. He breaks tackles, and he has a home run speed, which is huge. You know, in this league where you're constantly playing, you know, fierce competition, when you get an opportunity to create an explosive play and turn that explosive play into a touchdown, you got to do it.
And it's obviously easier to put together a 1-play drive and a 10-play drive, and that home run speed can do that. Low center of gravity with this kid, and like you talked about, breaks those tackles. When you put him in what you call those fight or flight moments in the hole, he comes out of those things alive. This is the type of kid that, don't you want to find different ways to get the football in his hands, just like the rest of
you
you
do, and he has that kind of skill set. And I also think he's an every down guy. You got some guys that are, you know, sub backs, or, you know, some guys that are specialty kind of players, but, you know, you like to have guys that can do it all, that can be on the field every snap, so you don't have to, you know, constantly sub in. You know, plus, you know, you got to protect that quarterback, and he has a size to be able to block as well. That's huge. So.
Chad Scott is our guest. He'll be on the offensive side, and obviously we're talking about running backs with Chad. 2 points here. You're from the state of Florida originally. Obviously, is that where you will be heading a good chunk of your recruiting time?
That will be. I recruit in Central Florida.
Central Florida. So
that's my primary spot.
All right. And in a perfect world, what would you like to get out of there each year?
The best player. To be honest with you.
Or the best couple, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and obviously West Virginia, as you probably know, has had a long, successful run in the state of Florida. One last question here before we let you go. You've been in the Big 12 conference.
I have.
You were at Tech.
I have.
So you know this league.
I do.
Walk us through just your perception of what it takes to win a championship in this conference.
Well, first off, you got to score points. That's first and foremost. You got to score points. You got to be effective on offense in terms of yards per play. You got to create explosive plays. And here's something that you may not hear a lot, but you got to limit the run game with the opposing football team. You know, it's funny. You know, we go do professional development all the time, and you hear guys say, "Well, when we go against these high-powered offense that's going to throw the ball, it's like going against a basketball player like LeBron James. He's going to get his double-double, triple-double. You stop the other guys. So you go against these teams that, you know, even like us that you know, gonna throw the ball a lot.
Right.
You got to try to limit those defenses by less than 100-some yards or so, which is going to make it even a challenge for us as an offense to be able to run the ball more effectively.
23 years in a row, Troy allowed the lowest yards per rush in the Sun Belt Conference defensively. Exactly what you're talking about.
That's why I'm saying that, because I know Coach Cowan here to put some pressure on him. But again, for us, I think to be able to run the ball effectively, at least average over 150-some yards a game, and throw the ball the way I know we're capable of throwing the ball, I think to me that's what it takes. To win a championship.
Gonna be fun.
It can be done.
You get up early too, man. You tweeted out the other day about 4 in the morning. You're an early riser?
I get up every morning about 3:45, 4 o'clock. I'm in this building every day no later than 4:30. It's become a lifestyle for me.
That's outstanding.
Probably not a healthy lifestyle, but I'm about used to it by now.
We appreciate it. Chad.
Thank you.
Welcome in Morgantown.
Absolutely.
All right, Chad Scott, WV assistant with us. We invite you to stay tuned. We'll continue to break down this recruiting class. Wolf will join us. Still to come, Neil Brown is with us at 2 o'clock, and we're with you until 3 when Neil takes the mic for the official press conference. Stay with us. More coming up. Recruiting show after this from WV Medicine.
We conquer mountains. But that's not why they call us mountaineers. It's because we don't let anything stand in our way. We build what's never been built. Seek cures for the incurable. And go first into undiscovered frontiers. We are mountaineers, and impossible is just another mountain to climb.
The air feels different on fall Saturdays in West Virginia. Familiar roads lead us on early morning drives to a place where we feel alive. And traditions bring together a fierce fan base, united by the same passion: West Virginia football. As West Virginia's bank, we've been there, and we'll continue to be there. United Bank, proud to be united with the Mountaineers.
The joy of being the best is unsurpassed in the only conference where regular season champions are determined the right way. Where everyone plays everyone. A conference with no divisions. A conference where every game matters. Whether it's the rich history of intense rivalries or the excitement of the newest ones, the Big 12 Conference. unsurpassed.
Swing and a high drive. That's headed to deep right field. That ball is going. That ball is gone. A homer, a two-run homer for Darius Hill.
West Virginia baseball is right around the corner. Catch the Mountaineers in Big 12 action against Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Kansas, and TCU, along with games against rivals Pitt, Marshall, and Penn State. Season tickets start as low as $105, and mini packages start at just $20. Log on to WVUGame.com or call 1-800-WVU-GAME today.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
Our special National Signing Day show 2019 continues here. We are inside the Milan Pushkar Center at the WVU Football Complex. We welcome you back. Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning and Dale Wolfley. Coming up here in just a couple of minutes, 2 o'clock our time, it will be WVU head football coach Neil Brown. He'll join us and we'll get his take on his first month on the job, and we'll talk a little bit about, obviously, recruiting and what's in store for this Mountaineer football program. But let's resume, guys, our look at some of these young men that have already signed on the dotted line. Again, the first class signed in December. The second piece of it comes today. Let's go to Terrence Doston, wide receiver out of the state of Florida, out of Tampa, Florida, 5'11", 160 pounds. So when it comes to out wide, when it comes to slot positions, Jed, where's he fall?
You see him on the transition units here, and obviously another kid that can help us with special teams because speed translates. But when you look at him as a wideout, what you're going to be seeing is a kid who has incredibly sticky hands. He high points the football. He has that extra gear that you just saw on that kickoff return. And he has football speed in addition to that. Once again, you see a lot of this. Him getting vertical past the corner, past the safety, handles press coverage well. He did it right there. He's very comfortable navigating traffic, Wolf. He can shake some tackles in space, and he has the want-to away from the football as a tenacious blocker on the perimeter.
Absolutely. And when I talked to his coach, Earl Garcia, he was telling me that he's a two-sport legit Division I guy, meaning baseball. I think he's going to go ahead and try to play with the Mountaineers. But, hey, check out today in the Tampa Bay Times, there's a big article on Terrence about being a legit two-sport guy and how glad he is at being here at WVU. I think you have to look at it as he's been never late to a meeting. Now, his coach tells me he's never cursed. Now, I'm not sure if I can believe that or not, but that's what his coach tells me. He said he's a model citizen, and he has all the big character that you're looking for in a player. So it's exciting to see that. Obviously, he said that it's a childhood dream to play for WVU. That's a child. Now, you know that the brand is working right down there in Florida, Tampa Bay, when the WV brand is a dream for this young man to come. I mean, I think that's really important. And I tell you what, Jed, I agree with everything you said about him. He's got all the ball skills. He's fast. What does speed do? Speed kills. And it kills the opponents.
And it gets you to meetings on time.
And it gets you to meetings and being quiet.
Yeah, and it's great to be here. So he's never said a curse word, either of these two. So it's kind of a really rare company. All right, let's jump into another wide receiver. 6 feet 1 inches tall and just over 200 pounds, Isaiah Esdale. He's at 203 pounds. This young man comes out of Eastern Christian initially, then Eastern Arizona College, out of the state of Maryland. What do you like?
Well, when you talk to Coach O'Mara out there, this is a kid that was kind of lost in the shuffle. This is a program that's provided a number of players. The Brown brothers came from there. We have another kid in this class this year from there. But an option offense on that side of the football, they couldn't use him that much. But he was a big play threat. You have to love his skill set. They even put him up on defense just to get him on the field for an opportunity to make some plays. And he said, look, irrespective of what style of offense we played, we felt all along he was the most talented receiver in our entire conference. When they put him on defense, he did produce, but he's also a very physical blocker. He's an incredibly unselfish team player. He was a big part of their success, and he filled a role even when he didn't get the football. But when you talk to Coach O'Mara, he raves about the kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach O'Mara, I coached against him out there in the Western States Football League.
How'd you do?
I think I was 500. I might be one down. I'm not sure. I don't want to say
That's
it.
the cookie cutter answer.
Let's not check the records. But, when you talk about him, he said, Wolf, he said, he's got the best hands I've ever coached. Now, coming from Eastern Arizona College and all the option they run, I don't know how much of a perspective he has, but he's been coaching for a very long time, and I respect the heck out of him as a coach. But, he says he's a perfect teammate. I said, what do you mean perfect teammate? He goes, well, he knows how good he was, and he only got 10 catches for the year, and he never complained. Now, they did throw him on defense. They did throw him back for punt returns, and he made a special contribution. I mean, this guy is really, he said his ceiling is high as he goes in the NFL. That's what he believes if he continues to progress the way he has. He says he's a game changer.
In a system like that, Tony, you scout traits. In other words, you don't scout production or results. And what you see in traits, the guy can jump out of the building, great leaping ability, great hand-eye coordination. He's making plays, dotting the I by the sidelines. He understands and appreciates where the boundary is. I think we got a talented football player that didn't have an opportunity to blossom in that offense out there.
And what's interesting and good for all of these newcomers is that everyone starts absolutely with a clean slate. No preconceived notions. Everyone's coming in. It's going to be a spring ball to remember here as everyone tries to battle it through. All right, next up, we go from wide receivers now to a cornerback. Best name on the entire list. It's not even close. Nick Troy Fortune is the name. And here's a guy that obviously, besides his name, is a good football player.
Speed is the foundation of coverage, right? This kid has it. There's a lot built around that on that platform. Watch him close the gap after a double move. I mean, there's a lot of press coverage we're talking about this kid utilizes. He deploys a lot of it. He's very comfortable in that world in press coverage. He reacts to the football in a blur. He reads the wide receiver's body language to track the ball. He's very instinctive, and when reacting to the quick game, he comes up. You're going to see a lot of that in the Big 12. Well, if he has loose hips, he can open up across his body, change direction on a dime. He takes man coverage very seriously. Don't get cute trying to work his guy into the screen game. One team saw this and tried to show screen, and the other kid tried to hit the rail. He jumped the screen, reacted back in time to make a pick on the rail, Wolf.
When you look at where he's been offered, you go Georgia Tech, Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State, NC, Kentucky, Cusville, Wisconsin, and Washington State. This kid is a thoroughbred. And when you really want to have a shutdown corner, he has that ability to do so. And again, I just keep talking to these coaches, and they say he's a phenomenal person. He said, I would give him my keys to my house to babysit my house. I mean, I think that's pretty good right there, Tony, when you think about it. And the other thing he said is when the other administration and coaches left, Detroit called him and said, hey, what are we going to do here? And he goes, just hold tight. And then Coach Brown got hired. And the coach was like, you know what, I've known this guy for 9 or 10 years. You're going to be happy. He's a family guy. You're going to fit right in there, Nick Troy. And as soon as he did, Coach Brown, again, I want to state, has done an amazing job of keeping all these players together, keeping them involved. Hey, I'm telling you right now, that's just phenomenal. It really is. So I'm excited about this young guy. He's going to be a player. And you know what? The last thing is they once moved him into safety, and he played downhill. He didn't want to go back to corner because he loved the physical contact.
The physicality of it. It's easier to pull somebody back than push them forward. And when you have a kid who comes out of the high school ranks playing against quality competition with that much press coverage, anything you can ask him to do from a coverage standpoint, he's going to be taught to the task at the college level.
I thought he was going to give me the hunting dog thing. It's easier to push someone back. If you got to teach a hunting dog how to hunt, you don't have a hunting dog, right? So that's kind of the deal on that. All right, lastly here, and head coach Neil Brown will be joining us in just a little bit. Let's talk about Ali Jennings. We go back to the wide receivers. He has size. He's 6 feet 1 inch tall and 180-pounder. Comes out of Highland Springs High School in the state of Virginia. What did you guys see on tape?
Man, I tell you what, I saw a very good athlete. I don't want to sit there and say, hey, he's a Gary Jennings-esque player, but you know what? he's a Gary Jennings-esque player. At 6'1", 180 pounds, he's strong. He high points all the catches. He never catches the ball with his body. He's got really good speed, just like Gary did. You know, acrobatic catches and catches into traffic. I mean, he's got bent knees. I really like this kid. And again, when you sit there and talk to his coach, all he says is, hey, listen, this kid is just a model citizen. He said he's going to be an asset to the community here in Morgantown, and he's also a big community service guy.
He certainly is. You talked about it, Wolf. He high points the football. We talk about that with a lot of these kids. He's a deep threat. If one-on-one, trust him, he'll make a play, just put it up. He understands leverage and the benefits of a good hand chuck like all wideouts do. He has great awareness near the sidelines. He's not afraid to go across the middle into the briar patch of it. Physicality doesn't scare this kid. Very strong hands. That's where he looks like Gary. His hands in traffic, very strong. Wrestles the football away from DBs on the ground, even in the end zone for a score. He's a relentless blocker. Now that's where this comes in. When you talk to Coach Lauren Johnson, that's a big-time brand of football at Highland Springs, Virginia. They produced a ton of kids. Felton Davis out of Michigan State going into the draft. Greg Dorst, the leading receiver in the ACC. You got a safety at Clemson. It's a two-time national champion. If you don't block at that program, you don't play. We're getting a great kid, a great receiver, and a relentless blocker.
I'll tell you something about this. This tells you that he can block, right, as a wide receiver. He also had our offers from Army and Navy, right? So they're not going to recruit you unless you stick your face down in there and block. And one last thing here before we get Coach Brown in, and that is the fact that when you make coaching transitions, you can have a season here in this midst where if you lost 5, 6, 7 of these recruits that had already signed in December, it would impact you 3 and 4 years down the road, right? And the fact that this class is together is massively important for the continuity and the consistency of where this program is going.
I don't just think it's solidified the class, Tony. Now, the early signing period obviously helps during transition. Now, a couple years ago, that wasn't existing. So that's something you have working in your favor during these transitions. But the class hasn't only been solidified, it's been improved on. I mean, the quarterback room's been improved. We have a couple other kids in the last handful of days or couple weeks that we've added to the mix. So not only did we retain who we were hoping to get to begin with, but Coach Brown has found a way, and this is speed dating. He talks about relationships. When you get here drinking from the fire hose like this, it's speed dating. It's not relationship based. You don't have enough time. And he's found a way to land a couple kids that will help us right away.
All right, we invite you to stay tuned. The head man, Neil Brown, will be joining us when we return. We're with you until 3 o'clock. You'll see Coach Brown's press conference, which begins in the WVU team room at 3 this afternoon. Do stay with us. Along with Del Wolfley and Jed Drenning, we continue on to hour number 2, our National Signing Day show, brought to us by WVU Medicine.
In the Big 12, our champion is determined by who we play, not by who we don't play. The only conference where every team plays everyone. A conference with no divisions that guarantees the top 2 teams play annually in our championship game. and the most challenging path to the college football playoff. Every game matters.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
And we welcome you back in. Our National Signing Day 2019 show continues here from the Pushkar Center. Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning, and we are now welcoming WVU head football coach Neil Brown. So I guess like after your first year of marriage and an anniversary, you get a paper gift.
That's right.
What is 1 month for a coach?
That's a good
Like,
question.
what do you get, like a new whistle? Or what do you-
How about some sleep?
Yeah.
That'd be good. A little rest. No, it's been a whirlwind, been hectic, but a lot of fun. You know, one of the things that I've probably enjoyed the most is just getting out of the state of West Virginia and meeting folks and being in those high schools and meeting the high school coaches. It has been a whirlwind, but I feel like we've gotten a lot accomplished in a short amount of time.
Neil, is what you...
What's going on, guys?
Oh, hey, look at this.
Doing a good job today, my man.
Let me tell you something.
There's the hardest working man in this university is right here.
Yeah.
I agree. This guy right here is one of the all-time great Mountaineers. And I've been here for 30 plus years, and this guy here has been one of the best representatives and ambassadors for West Virginia I've
He's
ever
my
seen.
son Dax's favorite. He's my father-in-law's favorite. I mean, across the board, he's the man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I tell you, Coach is killing it today. He's came guns blazing. He's done a great job. So it's a great day to be a Mountaineer.
There is, wherever you may be. Thanks, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Take care. So that was impromptu, very live. All right, so when you went out throughout the state and you've been meeting these folks, my perception is that your perception of what WVU football was and meant to the state, you've probably now confirmed what your thought was, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the real intriguing aspects of this job was the fact that you're the state university, that you had the whole state behind you, 1.8 million. I've heard that a lot. You know, 1.8 million Mountaineers behind you, and you see, and you can feel the power of that when you get out in the state. You know, whether it's at a basketball game, whether it's in a high school, whether it's just out to eat, you know, in every corner of the state, you can feel the passion that people have for West Virginia athletics, and it's really special. And not just for myself, our staff. We were in a staff meeting earlier today, and that was something that we were talking about. A couple of guys said, hey, you know, we were down recruiting last week, and we had a group come up because they'd seen her face, and they wanted to know about recruiting and all that kind of stuff.
Coach, one of the things I think people are starting to appreciate is outside the lines what they're getting with Coach Neil Brown. And everybody is tremendously excited about that, the type of guy that you are. And when you look back to what the Troy fans had to say as you were leaving, that just speaks volumes to that. Now, inside the lines, I think it's going to take some time to sort itself out. People understand your air raid background. People understand the names you're attached to. But the more you study what you accomplished at Troy, the more impressive it is. And one of the reasons is, even coming from that pedigree, that aired out, high-octane background, you like to win ugly. You don't win 31 games without doing that. You won a game last year with 220 yards with your backup quarterback. You beat Nebraska with 253 yards. You held LSU off the field because you had to. Talk about that.
Well, I think it's a maturation process, really, as you go through your career, whether it's an offense coordinator or as a head coach, is you got to find ways to win. At the end of the day, that's what matters is you're here to win football games when you get to that Saturday afternoon or that Saturday evening. And, you know, last year we had to win ugly quite a bit. And the strengths of our team at the start of the year was we were really explosive offensively. And we were playing at a high level. And then we had a change at quarterback, and we had some bumps in the road.
But as we went through the season, our strengths kind of changed, and we started playing defense at a high level, extremely high level. Probably if you look at over the last 7 games of the season through the bowl game, is we played defensively as well statistically as anybody in the country. And then our special teams, we were the #1 team, and according to ESPN, in special teams efficiency. So we played to our strengths. We ran the ball. We hit explosive plays. We were able to overcome a lot of injuries, and it wasn't always pretty. But to go 10-3, I felt like in the 4 years we were at Troy, that was our best job with that football team.
Yeah, let's jump in here now and talk about some of the kids that are signing today. We talked about the 2 that are already in. Another one is coming this hour. A press conference will take place at his high school. Then we'll make the formal announcement on that. But one of the other names that you've heard of is Austin Kendall, the post-grad transfer from Oklahoma, who is now here and is enrolled. You've got competition coming up here in spring practice. You've got a 3-quarterback situation in your room. You knew Austin from your days at Kentucky, where you coached his brother. Walk us through the need and walk us through why you like him.
Well, I think the need was evident as we had 2 scholarship quarterbacks, and I like both of those guys, and Trey Lowe and in Jack Allison. I think both those are really good human beings. I think they got an opportunity to be great great quarterbacks here at West Virginia. But we only had 2, and Trey's participating in baseball this spring, so he may or may not be available at all times during the spring. So we felt like we needed to add a guy. We needed to add a guy that could immediately compete. So we needed to add a guy that had experience and long relationship with Austin and his family. We recruited Austin really heavily at the University of Kentucky, and then obviously followed his career, but had an opportunity to coach Ryan, his brother, knew his mom and dad as well.
2 parts of his game I'd like to ask you about. One, he's a lot more nimble than you might think.
Yeah.
He's a slightly athletic kid, athletic enough to get you out of trouble, that can help you with angles in the screen game. He can throw off different platforms. He can even make some things happen, moving the chains on 3rd down. Talk about that, but also talk about the fact when you watch some of that Oklahoma tape, despite hardly getting reps with the ones, he seemed to have a bit of a relationship with their starting receivers, with Hollywood Brown, with CeeDee Lamb. Can that translate here and maybe ratchet things up from a timeline standpoint with our starters?
Well, he has the ability to connect, and that's something that you look for at quarterback. You want somebody that's going to connect with the skill players in the offensive line. And I always thought it's the chameleon effect. You know, the really successful quarterbacks can, regardless of who it is or what surroundings they're in, they blend in with all those guys. And I think he has that aspect. He has a leadership. Components that you want out of your quarterback. As far as his physical skill set, he has an extremely quick release. He has a really strong arm. He can make all the throws with velocity. He has the ability to, I wouldn't necessarily call him a runner. We're not necessarily going to call run plays for him specifically, but he has the ability to extend plays and create. In today's college football game, you've got to be able to extend plays and create. If you look at the 2 guys that he played behind at Oklahoma the last 2 years, the last 2 Heisman Trophy winners, they had the ability to do that. I know he was well coached in high school. I know I have a lot of respect for Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. I know he's well coached during his time at Oklahoma, and he learned from Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield and watched them up close and personal. So he's a guy that we're excited. Now he's still got to come, and he's still got to win the football job, and he has not done that yet.
We are 6 weeks away from really the start of spring ball. Can you walk us through here, Neil, as to how you will begin to put this offense together? Because you have to evaluate what you can do, what you can't do, and then construct your offensive plan. How does that happen?
Well, I think we're starting the process. Yesterday we had our first team workout. We can do very little football work with them. We can't do anything. We're evaluating anything with a ball. But we had our first team workout, so you can see how guys move, lateral agility, what kind of explosiveness do they have, how do they follow directions, all those type of things. We'll have another one tomorrow morning. So we've got about another 3 or 4 weeks of that. And then I think the next piece of it is fundamentally making sure we're fundamentally sound. I think you always start with basics, especially when you go into a new situation. You want to be as fundamentally sound as you possibly can be. So we're into that. And then we'll grow schematically as we get into spring ball. And what we'll do is we have an offense. We're still adding. We have one more staff member to add to our offensive side, and we feel like we'll have that done by this weekend at the latest. And so what we'll do is we'll start as a staff coming together, on what have we done well at Troy, what have the other staff members, what have they done, how does that fit our personnel here? And then a lot of it has to do with, I always call the game through 2 people, or through 2 position groups. Number 1, the quarterback. Offensively we got to do what our quarterback's good at. And number 2, what does our offensive line do the best?
and what are they capable of doing. So once we have a better understanding of those two positions, then we'll move in on what our offense is going to look like.
I think people have to appreciate how methodical you've been in putting together the staff. You haven't rushed to it. You wanted the right people, and it's working out already. Now, something you talked about at Troy was how critical it was to have energy within the program. Mm-hmm. You wanted the kids looking forward to coming into the building. Now, it reaches a point you talked about where you can hand that off to the kids, and the kids themselves create that energy. But before that happens, it's up to the coaches. That's the responsibility of the coaches to create that. So what do you do out of the chutes to start creating that kind of energy here?
Well, I think environmental factors are so important, and we always talk about environmental factors. The first one we want to create, and I think that's the most important job as a leader of any organization, is to provide an environment where the people under you or the people within the organization can be successful. And I think part of being successful is they got to want to be a part of it, and they got to feel connected. So the first thing we talk about is just fun. We don't have fun. I mean, and we're intentional about doing that. I think you've seen on social media, we've had a Super Bowl party. We went bowling. We've done competitions. We're going to have they don't know it yet, but we're going to have, maybe they're watching, so I'm giving it. But, we're having a West Virginia football history quiz in our team meeting this afternoon. So we got to be intentional about having fun. The second thing is we want to have positive energy. And so much of that positive energy is who you surround them with. And our strength staff, who they've been primarily with, has a lot of positive energy. Okay, Mike Joseph and his staff, Brittany Odell in academics, they're extremely positive in that area. So those two, they're spending a lot of time with both of those individuals and their staffs. And then if you look at our makeup of who we've hired so far, a lot of people that like to smile, that have what we call juice, got a little bounce about them. And then we talk about, another environmental factor that's hugely important is we want to create a family atmosphere. And to me, it's about relationships. And to have relationships, you got to invest time. And that's player to player, that's coach to player, coach to coach. So, that's a work in progress. It's not going to just happen overnight.
How much of that, of what your philosophy is, came from watching your mom, your dad, who are in the education business? Is that when it started to click?
Yeah, well, I think that at the end of the day, we're in the education business. Now, thankfully, the education I'm in is a little more fruitful than the education business that my mom and dad were in. But yeah, I grew up where in a teaching environment where my dad was a principal, my mom was an elementary school librarian. I was in the school from as young as I can remember. I was around athletics. Watched my dad. My dad took over a high school, Boyle County High School, that hadn't had a whole lot of success. And we're really struggling as an academic institution as well. And what he did is he invested time and he invested resources and people into extracurricular activities. And band, football, basketball, baseball, whatever it was. And now, if you look at it, 25 years plus removed from when he initially got there, is you've got a school that has a tremendous amount of pride. It's one of the best schools, public institutions in the state of Kentucky, multiple state football championships, been highly successful in the girls and boys sports. And that started with extracurricular activities, primarily athletics. So that was something I watched, and I saw the pride in that. So without a doubt, from how we understand that we're teachers, and I talk to our staff members about this all the time, is we're teachers and we're in a learning environment. And so we need to create an environment where learning is critical and where our guys can be successful. But without a doubt, so much of what we do here and what we do on a day-to-day basis goes back to those educational roots.
And you talk about teaching, let's stick with that theme. When you talk to people who've been in your past, one thing keeps coming up. They talk about his priorities are in the right place. And they mean that across the board. So not only do you live it, but you teach it. I can't get enough of the story about when you beat LSU in Baton Rouge. Where'd your family watch the game? At an Applebee's.
Yeah, well.
Why? Your daughter had a gymnastics meet. That's priority. So talk about not
that's
just
my wife's
that.
That's my wife's
That's your wife's priority.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
talk about how you teach that.
She's the real star. Now that was she's the one that had the at that time I guess a 1-year-old and keeping up with a 1-year-old at gymnastics. So she's the real star. But yeah, this is a family deal for us. It's not something we just give empty words to. It's something that's really important. And I think it's critical at this age. We get a group of young people that from 17 to 22, 23 at the max, but it's a critical time in their development. And I think, I use this quote all the time, is Warren Buffett has a quote that I use in leadership all the time. I use it with our team. I use it with our staff. Is people do what people see. People do what people see, and I believe that with all my heart. And I think it's important, not only for myself, and we make mistakes. Our staff members make mistakes without question. No, trust me, there's no hint of high-level performance in all phases at all times. Guilty, all right? Trust me. But what we do is we try to make a valiant effort, and I think it's really important, not only for myself, but our staff members, is to model what a husband looks like, to model what a father looks like. And the only way you can do that is you have your kids around. You have functions like the Super Bowl where my family wasn't here because they're making the move this weekend, but a lot of our staff members' families were there, and it's important that they see us in a different light.
Yeah. Before we let you go here, jumping back to X's and O's. So spring ball comes up here. What is at the very top of your must-have done list when spring ball and the spring game, which is April the 13th, is over with? What do you have to have before you go off season?
Yeah, well, I think that we got to grow closer as a team, and we need to identify what our strengths and what our weaknesses are. And it's probably just as important, honestly, to identify what we need work on during the spring. Spring's hard to judge because you go against each other the whole time, so you don't really ever have a great feel for what you're best at. All right, or even because your weakness on offense may be mirror up with what your weakness on defense is, so you don't really have a good feel. But I want us to grow chemistry-wise. I think coming out of spring, if we have a fundamental base, I think that's important. In all three phases, not just offense and defense, but offense, defense, and special teams, we have a fundamental base where our guys can take that and advance that over the summer. And then we've got our base concepts where they understand at every position what we're trying to do in a big picture, where they can work and grow in that understanding as they work alone over the summer.
You'd be a fun guy to play word association with. And what I mean by that is when you look at the names sprinkled throughout your past, whether it's Tim Tebow at Florida, I think I know what that word would be, all right? Mark Whipple at UMass, guy that's climbed through the coaching ranks, Tony Franklin. If I say the name Mike Leach, what jumps out to you about Mike Leach?
That you can say on the air.
That you can say on the air.
Eccentric. He's one. And the thing I like that him, he's been his own man. He hadn't conformed. He's done it his way, kind of Frank Sinatra. He's done it his way, and his way has been extremely successful for him.
And they said you were the only guy on the team that could hold a conversation with him, and that's how they knew you were going to be a coach.
You have done some research. That's good research. Hey, he was at a young in his career. He wanted to know about horse racing. That's something I did have knowledge of. Actually, I was better at golf and had more horse racing knowledge at 17, 18 than I do right now.
There you go.
Neil, 3 kids will sign today. Mm-hmm. You'll have a couple in your pocket that you can use. Do you have an idea as to if you will use them, when you will use them? What's your guess?
Yeah, so I think let me say this, is our philosophy at other places and our philosophy here is we're always looking to improve our roster. We're always building our roster. We're not just building our roster in December. In February, we're constantly evaluating and trying to improve our roster at all times. So one of the things and we've done this at every stop, whether it was at Kentucky, at Texas Tech, at Troy as a head coach, is when you get these jobs during transition, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they try to immediately go out and fill every open recruiting spot they have, and you're speed dating in a lot of ways, for lack of a better word. You're speed dating, and so you make mistakes. There's a lot of mistakes. Maybe it's a character mistake, maybe it's an academic mistake, maybe it's just an athletic ability mistake where they're not as good a player as you thought. Because recruiting now is an 18-month to 2-year really process, and one thing that's huge for us is live evaluations. Live evaluations. We want to get kids on campus no less than 3 times before they're making a decision. So you don't have that ability to do that in a 3-week relationship. So if you look at the guys that we're going to sign today, for the most part, maybe one exception, are guys that we had relationships with for a long time. Where guys that we were on at Troy, but we couldn't close on at Troy because we weren't a Power 5 school, so we changed our logos, and now that relationship that we had at Troy has really paid off, and they're going to sign with us today. But those remaining spots, I think we're going to use a little bit of time. I think that a couple areas of need, just looking at our numbers, are on the offensive line and on the defensive line. We need to at some point probably add an offensive lineman that can come in and help us. We just don't have enough of available bodies right now. And on the defensive line, we just don't, same issue is we don't have enough bodies, especially guys that can play on the edge. So I think those are two of the needs that we'll look to address as we go through the spring into the summer.
Busy day. You've got more to talk about. 3 o'clock. You'll be up at the podium in the team room, and folks can get a little bit more insight. We really appreciate your time.
No, thank you all.
All right. Neil Brown with us. We invite you to stay tuned. We'll continue to break down the class. We've got more highlights of those that have signed with the gold and blue. Do stay with us. Our special signing day show continues here from the Pushkar Center, brought to us by WVU Medicine.
We conquer mountains. But that's not why they call us mountaineers. It's because we don't let anything stand in our way. We build what's never been built. Seek cures for the incurable. And go first into undiscovered frontiers. We are mountaineers, and impossible is just another mountain to climb.
The air feels different on fall Saturdays in West Virginia. Familiar roads lead us on early morning drives to a place where we feel alive. And traditions bring together a fierce fan base, united by the same passion: West Virginia football. As West Virginia's bank, we've been there, and we'll continue to be there. United Bank, proud to be united with the Mountaineers.
The joy of being the best is unsurpassed in the only conference where regular season champions are determined the right way. Where everyone plays everyone. A conference with no divisions. A conference where every game matters. Whether it's the rich history of intense rivalries or the excitement of the newest ones, the Big 12 Conference, unsurpassed.
Swing and a high drive. That's headed to deep right field. That ball is going. That ball is gone. A homer, a two-run homer for Darius Hill.
West Virginia baseball is right around the corner. Catch the Mountaineers in Big 12 action against Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Kansas, and TCU, along with games against rivals Pitt, Marshall, and Penn State. Season tickets start as low as $105, and mini packages start at just $20. Log on to WVUGame.com or call 1-800-WVU-GAME today.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
On a rainy day here in Morgantown, we welcome you back in on WVUsports.com. It is National Letter of Intent Signing Day. We're inside the Pushkar Center along with Dale Wolfley and Jed Drenning. I'm Tony Caridi. Thanks so much for being with us. Again, Neil Brown will be taking the podium a little bit after 3 o'clock this afternoon for his official press conference. It was good to get his insight here just a few moments ago. We're going to continue our look at the young men who have already signed on the dotted line for WVU. So show you some tape there. It's coming up in just a little bit. The return of Jamal Addai, who's now a WVU assistant coach, former standout player here at West Virginia. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. All right, boys, let's jump in here. We got an in-state young man from Capital High School. He is already on campus. It is Kerry Martin. You guys, when you watch him on tape, what are you seeing?
I see a physical corner on the defensive side of the football, brings a lot of physicality, very aggressive. He ran through blocks, blows things up on the perimeter. He's a pretty secure tackler in space, maybe leaves his feet a little too often, but that's something that can be addressed. Athletic with the football in his hands on the offensive side. Good vision in space. He's a playmaker. They'll snap the shotgun over his head, and he throws a 50-yard touchdown. Turns bad plays into good plays. That's what athletes do. Couldn't help but notice in the playoff game at Martinsburg, threw a pick, then came up and decleated the kid, forced a fumble, and got the ball back. When you talk to his head coach, John Carpenter, he can't stop talking, Wolf, about how incredibly aggressive this kid is. Says he's a throwback during toughness drills. He wants to jump in. He's not even sure what his position will be at the college level. He said he's so versatile, he's so aggressive, he's not sure if he'll be on the offensive or defensive side of the football if you ask his high school coach.
Right, well, I see him more as a defensive player at this point, but, when he has 55 tackles, 5 picks, 5 pass breakups, he's got a fumble recovery, 2 forced fumbles, and a blocked field goal, I'd kind of say he's Mr. Everything when you think about him throwing for in his career, 6,845 yards. Tony, 85 touchdowns. I mean, it's amazing. And then he goes ahead and he rushes for 2,800 or 383 yards and another 37 touchdowns. This is Mr. Doer. I mean, this guy, now he's doing this while playing defense over here. The quarterback. I mean, he's offensively, he's doing everything for the team. 3 consecutive semi-state finals here. He's 2-time All-State. You got to tell you, I love this guy. I mean, he's got a low center of gravity. He stopped on a dime. You saw him go ahead and read the bubble screen and go ahead and break for the interception for the touchdown. Hey, Jed, that's a quarterback.
Yes.
On the defensive side, in my opinion, he sees the field. He has vision.
And we keep talking about special teams contributors, right? Sure. This is a kid who could play early on special teams. That's the kind of skill set he brings. I see quarterbacks coming from the high school ranks converting to defensive backs. How about Bo Orlando, Berwick, George Curry? I mean, West Virginia has a history of success with these types of football players. Why? Because they're very heads-up football players.
Absolutely, and he embraces physical contact.
He's already here as well. He was an early enrollee, so he's been here since last month. And so you get that opportunity for off-season conditioning. He's going to get a spring ball. By the time he goes out there in August, everything will be much more familiar. So you got a quicker chance to play. And obviously, with the new redshirt rule, you've got the opportunity at least to get several games in if needed. All right, now my favorite under-recruited position in every single recruiting class. These guys, they want to talk about guys that are on the field all the time. How about the guys that win the game at the end? Mm-hmm. Back in the old days, you never would scholarship a kicker, right? That was like unheard of. Back when you guys played, they were like walk-ons. And maybe when you were a senior, if you were good enough,
you had to earn it.
Maybe they'd give you a scholarship after you kicked 62 field goals. All right, we've got one on this list. Colton McGee is a kicker-punter out of Altoona, Pennsylvania. All right, I want to really hear how good you guys are. Evaluate his kick.
Well, you talked about winning the game. There's more ways to win the game than a field goal on the buzzer, right? If you put the football deep enough, it impacts hidden yardage and field position. This is a kid that more than half the time in the high school ranks put the football in the end zone. We love touchbacks in the Big 12, Wolf, so that's one of the first things he brings to the table. The versatility, we lost Billy Kinney, there's going to be a battle for that position. The versatility as both a punter and a kicker, I'll be honest with you, when you bring this level of versatility into your program, I think every program needs a kid like this or two and see what happens, see what blossoms. Strong leg, but when you look at kickers, he's coming in at $175. That's the type of kid, can get in the weight program, can get with Mike Joseph, he can add distance to those kicks, and that 51%, 52% touchback rate maybe even goes up.
All I can say is this. I don't know what to tell you about a kicker and a punter. I mean, that is not my specialty. I pull a groin every time I try to punt or kick. But I will say this, the ball comes off his foot with a ton of juice. I mean, it's a pop, and it goes up, and it's strong, and he's fairly accurate. When he took at him as a punter, Jed, he had 34 punts last year, averaged 46 yards plus, but he put 16 of those 34 inside the 20. There's a young man who knows how to position the ball. That could be your best defensive player out there just by positioning the ball inside the 20. And, of course, with the kickoffs, just, you know what? This guy's got a lot of juice. I don't know what else to say about him. But you know what? I'm glad he's here. I'm glad he's a Mountaineer.
Yeah, it's important, obviously. And I was kidding in the beginning there, but it is the most under-talked about, if that's the way to say it, position, because these are the guys that win games. Unfortunately for WVU, they come into this next season with stability because Evan Staley has proved that he is a big-time kicker, and that's going to be paying off dividends here still for a couple of years. Earlier on, we talked about Isaiah Esdale from Eastern Arizona College. We've got another young man we want to talk about, also from Eastern Arizona. It's Drayson Miller. What was your evaluation on him, Wolf?
Well, you know, when I get out there, I'm like, wow, he's 6'2", he's 185 pounds. He is a big corner. You know what? Here's the greatest thing I've seen. He's got all the technique, all the skill, all the speed, but he's just calm. When he goes ahead and makes a play, he plays the ball. And when you see him do that, there's like, he's got a knack for playing the ball. And he you know what, I was talking to John O'Mara, the coach, he said, hey, I put him against all the best wide receivers in WSFL. And I'd say there's a lot of good receivers out there, or at least there were before that thing floated. And he said, he's always working against the best. He said, I've had six corners in my program that have been in the NFL. He said he's going to be number 7.
Wow.
That's what John said.
And they had 2 corners last year. The other kid starting opposite him is going to Kentucky. So the result, Wolf, was what'd they do? They blitzed a lot, played a lot of press man. So he got tested, and he answered the bell. And when you look at his skill set, reads and reacts well, plays the screens, plays the double moves. When you look at him reacting up quickly to the quick game, that's something that's going to happen in the Big 12. You have to do that if you're a defensive back playing that position. When you look at him downfield, even if the quarterback is able to extend the play, he still sticks to the wideout during those extra beats in tight coverage. That's why John O'Mara raved about the kid when you talked about him. He put him up against their best. He said he would catch him in the offseason out there on the field by himself, sometimes take pictures just to send to coaches saying, look, I'm not making this up. I'm not supposed to be here. Look what I'm watching. But one of the things that sticks out to me, he trusts his eyes. And there was a kid that I remember, Wolf, when we did this show a handful of years ago, a kid that went to Nassau Community College that trusted his eyes. He didn't make every play. He didn't make every play, but he trusted his eyes. And he was rough and raw, a little rough around the edges and raw. But what did he develop into? And we're talking about Rasul Douglas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I got down right here. And you know what? Because he always had that knack of making the big play, the big time, getting the big pick, and he's doing that with the Philadelphia Eagles. Boy, this kid reminds me of him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's jump over now. When we were talking with Neil a little bit earlier on, he said obviously 2 areas of need would be the offensive line and the defensive line. One of the young offensive linemen who has already signed and will be coming in at 6'4", 283 pounds out of the state of North Carolina from Charlotte, Parker Moore. All right, Wolf, you're the offensive line guy. What was your evaluation here?
Well, I really liked he's big, he's fast. You know what? When I say he's got knee bend, that means that he can get down the stance and he can get up and he can be low center of gravity, so he can get up and pull. As you see it right here, he's got to get up and pull. And look, he's got to chase this DB all the way to the end. So what does that mean? The kid has got a little bit of nastiness to him. He's got a little bit, I'm going to play to the end of the play and where the whistle blows. I mean, you can't always do that. And the other thing that he does for technique-wise, he keeps his hands inside-out leverage. He has a flat back when he comes off, and he keeps his feet moving after the initial hit. You don't always see linemen that will do that. They just try to stalemate it. No, he wants to keep it going and drive it. And again, what I like about him, 6'4", 283. He's got a big can, Tony. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm telling you. It's important, and he's strong in the lower half of his body, and that's what, the beginning of a good offensive lineman.
Tell you what I like about him. He scraps and digs to protect his quarterback. So why wouldn't I like that about him, right? You bull rush the kid and he will flat out wear you out. If you watch him on tape, appears to get beat by a speed rusher, but then he lays out and gets just enough skin on that guy to get him to the ground and once again protect his quarterback. He spent a lot of time in high school climbing to the second level, tracking guys down in space. He's athletic enough to do that and do it well. Now think of the skill set that involves. You're being asked to climb the ladder, get into the secondary, chase down a backer that's smaller than you, chase down a defensive back that's smaller than you. That takes a special brand of athleticism for a big guy to pull it off. He consistently did that.
A little bit nasty.
Does he stay at a specific spot, or could he be someone that could bounce?
Right now he's athletic enough to bounce, but I kind of like him right there as an offensive guard.
Like him as a guard.
I really do. I do. You know what? When you get a big man that can run like that, bent knees, low center of gravity, you can do a lot of damage.
Weaponize him in space, and you got something to work with there.
Absolutely. We invite you to stay tuned. When we come back, Jamal Addai will be with us. We'll get an insight from a former Mountaineer who has come back home. Do stay with us. Our signing day special continues, brought to us by WVU Medicine.
In the Big 12, our champion is determined by who we play, not by who we don't play. The only conference where every team plays everyone. A conference with no divisions that guarantees the top 2 teams play annually in our championship game. And the most challenging path to the college football playoff. Every game matters.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
Our coverage of National Signing Day from the Pushkar Center here at the WVU Football Complex continues. Welcome back in. Tony Caridi along with Dale Wolfley. And do you recognize this man? He is back. Jamal Addai joins us. He is back on the staff here at West Virginia. I had the chance to see him once again earlier today. It's good to have him back. And I told him, Wolf, still looks like he could go a little bit, don't you?
Oh, I think he still can. I think he's got a big hit or two left in him. That's for sure.
One more shoulder. One more. How are those shoulders
and
feel?
everything will fall apart thereafter.
How'd you come out? Do you feel all right? Do you feel like you played?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely feel like I played. I tell you what. There's times where you wake up in the morning and you're feeling the little kinks and the pains that kind of come with post-career.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change any of it. It was a great experience, and obviously continuing to live it as we speak.
It goes without saying, and I talked to you earlier on, you're just you're giddy to be back home.
I am. And I got to caution myself against smiling and cheesing everywhere I go. I don't want these kids to think that, hey, who's this handsy-pantsy guy coming in here? But it's a good feeling. It's been really, really humbling in a sense to be able to come back home and help out where I played my ball. And the one thing that I do know is that we've got some things that have been mainstays within this program for quite some time, and we plan on not changing those things, but just enhancing them. And it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah. They often say once a Mountaineer, always a Mountaineer, and so everyone's story is kind of interesting. Walk us way back. Okay. First time West Virginia contacted you were in high school. Who was it, and what made your decision to come here to play?
It was actually Calvin McGee. I'm from Tampa, Florida. He was actually coaching at South Florida at that point in time. And we had some common friends. He actually had been on Coach Levitt about giving me an offer, and Coach never extended it. And the one rule that they had at South Florida amongst the staff was if they had a kid that was offered or committed on the board, that you weren't allowed to recruit them if you went to another school. Well, it just so happens that I wasn't on that list because obviously Coach Levitt had never extended that offer. And so with that being said, when Coach got here, literally the next day I got the call saying, hey, we're interested. And at first I didn't believe it because I didn't have a whole bunch going on recruiting-wise, but it had started to heat up. Louisville, Cincinnati, a couple of other schools started to come in. And obviously I had some familiarity with Coach, being that his daughter actually went to my high school. So when I got the call, it was pretty cool. Back then, recruiting was a little more old school, where parents were really, really involved in it and actually made most of the decisions for the players, as opposed to how it is these days. And my parents got a chance to spend some good time with Coach McGee, and by the time he left my house, they basically told me where I was going to school at. And the visit was just kind of a culmination of things, I guess, thereafter.
What are your key memories, your games? What big moments in your career do you remember the most?
There's so many of them. That's probably the toughest question I've been asked in quite some time. I'd have to say our Sugar Bowl win as a senior. I think that was a game that not very many people gave us a chance in. I'm not sure that we were necessarily that confident or just too stupid to know that we didn't belong. But we went in and handled business the way we knew how, the way we were coached to, and came out on top. And that was something that I don't think that thought, that feeling, the experience in itself, the stage, how grand it was one that I could never live down. It's a pretty cool time.
And to do it in Georgia.
Absolutely, home state.
That underscores the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl
no question.
is one we'll never forget. All right, let's jump in here to some of these guys you have inherited in the defensive backfield, but you've watched tape, and so break them down for us as a former safety. Let's begin with Osoit Smith, 6'2", 198, not too far away from Bowie, Maryland. When you started to evaluate and you started to get to know him, what are you seeing?
Yeah, Osoit he's got things that mom and dad gave him, and those things are his size, his length, and that's stuff that obviously, like I said, we can't coach. He's a long, aggressive athlete, played on both sides of the ball, so that shows you that he's got the ability not only to tackle and do the defensive side of things, but also be able to have ball skills and be able to have brains that will allow him to be able to play on the defensive back end. Great kid in terms of his acumen. He's very intelligent, comes from a very solid household. Mom and dad are obviously within his life, as well as his stepfather, and had a great time visiting with them over the last few weeks. Obviously, we had to speed date him because we're just getting in. But the one thing that I do know is that he's a hard-working, upstanding kid, and really excited to get a chance to work with him.
Jamal, he played in only 10 games in 2018, but he had over 100 tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, he led his team in sacks,
Right.
tackles for loss, registered 5 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, and 2 defensive touchdowns. He's a disruptor out there. He's naturally blitz and rush. I mean, I know you look at that for his safety.
Absolutely.
Going back to your days, you were a natural blitzer.
Right.
You can't find that in every young man nowadays.
Right.
That either you got a knack for it, or you don't as a blitzer. And it appears that he really does.
Right.
And he's got that big, long frame that in the Big 12 you really look forward to.
Yeah, the best coverage is a good pass rush, right?
Right.
And so if you got a defensive back that can actually rush the passer, that's a pretty cool deal in itself. He happens to be that guy. We plan on playing him in somewhat of a nickel position. In the past here, that would have been a spur bandit type position. Very, very similar skill set, and he'll be asked to do some of those things that he did in high school for those reasons. He was successful at it. The one thing that we do know is that he will attack the quarterback. Blitzing, more times than not, is all about want to and really wanting to get there. And the one thing we know about him is that he's amped up and ready to go. He's all game when it comes to that. So, again, very, very excited about him. The size, the skill set, I think it matches what we want to do with the kid. Absolutely.
From Osoit Smith, let's go to another Smith. Tykee Smith is another safety. Give me your thoughts when you put the tape on, started to watch him, and then eventually when you met him.
Got a chance to meet him. Yeah, I actually recruited Tykee at the last places I was at. So I had somewhat of a prior relationship with him. He had a skill set that obviously we loved at the last place, and coming here, it allowed me to continue to carry that over. Great kid, super aggressive. You'll see again that he's different in terms of stature from Osoit. He's a little bit shorter, but also stocky or wider in a sense. But the one thing that he does is, again, he plays aggressively, especially within the box and around the football. You're going to see on his tape that he's very, very active. But when you meet him, you also know that he has an infectious personality. The one quality about him that you can't measure from the tape is his leadership ability, is the person that he is. And that's something that we hope is contagious throughout the defensive backfield.
So Philly guy there, right?
Yeah, no question.
Imatep, you can't be soft to go to Imatep.
No, you can't. You can't. And I tell you what, he's about one of the hardest ones you'd find in that area. He has done a great job molding himself into a premier athlete within that area. But you're absolutely right. He's got the Philly chip for sure.
Talking to his coach, he said that, you know, the big thing about Coach Brown and yourself is that you guys made it like family. He was looking for a family. And he said he really found it, and he felt really good, secure, even though past coaches have left. He found that in you guys. And he also struck up quite a friendship with Letty Brown, who's from Philadelphia as well. So kind of a homeboy thing.
Yeah, no question. Like I said, he's got an infectious personality. And it was very, very clear to see when we had him here with all the other recruits and the other guys, even the other coaches. He always seemed to be holding court. You know, he always had 10 or 15 guys around him, which obviously shows that he can naturally draw people in. Again, I don't see him as being a guy that's going to come in and be shy about wanting to come in and make some waves or change or shake some things up. And that's what you want out of these young guys. You want them to come in with the mindset that, hey, I'm here to compete. Again, as we've already said, he's a Philly kid, so he's going to come in with that chip, and I'm excited to see what the result is.
And the nice thing is this new redshirt rule, which will be year number 2, got an opportunity to get guys out there, or at least give them the opportunity to get out onto the field, where in the past it really didn't exist.
Where was that when I was playing? You know?
Exactly. We could have snuck you in there for
steal
4
3 or
games.
4 games, right, and then go hang out there after. That's an awesome addition to the NCAA, or subtraction, however you want to look at it, to the NCAA rule book. I think that he's a kid who, again, we'll be able to dibble and dabble with early, especially special teams. See what we get out of them, and then work from there. Again, I think all of these guys will fit in that mold in which we'll have a chance to see them in their skill set early, not just in camp, but even in normal game situation, hopefully. And then from there, make the determination as to whether or not we can continue to play them, or whether we've got to move on and allow them to develop more. But I do feel like, and I think any coach that you ask this is going to say that we're recruiting guys that can come in and help us immediately, hoping that is the case, but we're not going to put a guy out there if he's not ready to go. And so we're going to do some evaluation early on and often with these young guys.
Very good. Jamal, it's good to have you back, man.
It's great to be back.
Great to
That's
have
where
you
it
back.
is.
All right.
Absolutely.
If you see him smiling, he's smiling because he's happy. Jamal Addai joins us here. We invite you to stay tuned. We've got more coming up. We'll break down the class. Jed will return. Stay with us. Back with more. We've got a signee when we come back that just signed on the dotted line. Back after this.
In the Big 12, our champion is determined by who we play, not by who we don't play. The only conference where every team plays everyone. A conference with no divisions that guarantees the top 2 teams play annually in our championship game. And the most challenging path to the college football playoff. Every game matters.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
Well, if more than 2 hours isn't enough for your recruiting diet, we've got more coming your way tonight on the Mountaineer Sports Network radio side from 7 until 8 o'clock this evening on MSN Radio. We invite you to join us. Wolf will be there. We'll be at Kegler's Sports Bar along with Neil Brown and a few Mountaineer assistants. We'll, I guess, finalize the day in recruiting. We do have a new name to add to the WVU recruiting list. We've been, as you could say, holding the Mayo, but Tavian Mayo has just formally made his announcement. 5'11", 180-pound cornerback out of Leesburg. You like that, didn't you? Out of Leesburg, Georgia, out of Lee County High School. All right, guys, give me your take.
Well, first thing is first. This young man, he loves to jam on the press. I mean, he likes physical contact. He wants to go and challenge himself up against the wide receivers. Look at it right here. He wants, at one time, I saw him go ahead and take a wide receiver and drive him, Jed, right out of bounds. I mean, just took him out. When you got that type of appetite and you want to take that receiver and shut down, that is really, really strong. This is a great pick. I like it. He's a covered corner. He has excellent bend, and he reads the plays. I mean, he anticipates what's going on. I mean, just by his 31 tackles, he had 9 pass breakups, 2 picks from this past year, but he also had 7 picks as a junior, with 3 of those being touchdown returns. He's an overall good player, solid. He's going to come in and compete, Tony, in a very short time. This is a great pick, and this is a pick from this coaching staff right now.
Athletic, tremendous ball skills. Well, if you talked about press coverage, not just press, but actually some press and bail. As a technician, he's a lot more advanced than a lot of kids at that age in high school. Wolf talked about it. Very physical kid, plays bigger than he actually is. He'll get hands on you, impact the route, redirect you, reacts to the run game as well. Physical, flies uphill as a run supporter, good instincts, and he has that feel in zone coverage. You can see him feel the zone, fill the void, eyes the wide receiver, and plays the quarterback at the same time in zone coverage, can play soft and react up to the ball incredibly quickly. And yet another guy has some possibilities from a special team standpoint to contribute there as well.
And think about this, okay? Nebraska, Duke, Georgia Tech, Iowa State, Maryland, Michigan, NC State. This is a quality get. It's not easy to get guys like this late in the game, and they did it. They secured it. Coach Brown, congratulations.
Yeah, and talking to Neil earlier about him, this was a guy they had a pre-existing relationship with, and he said, you know, when the logo changed, then West Virginia was able to get involved. He probably doesn't go to Troy, but he wanted to play at a Power 5 level, and obviously West Virginia lands him here. All right, let's talk about a legacy recruit right now. His dad was here, and he was a fantastic defensive lineman for the Mountaineers, went on for a veteran more than 10 years in the NFL. We're talking about John Thunder Thornton, and now his son, Jaylen Thornton, has signed back in December, 6'2", 250 pounds, out of Cincinnati. This young guy's got a chance.
He sure does. It's talking to his coach. It's his first 3 steps that really makes him impressive out there. And he's got a motor, man. He's got a motor. And talking to Coach Tony Kerry, okay, this is what I really like. And by the way, do you know I gave Thunder his nickname, right?
I did not
When I was
know
coaching here, I gave his nickname because he was kicking the can on the scout team of all the upper guys there. I hate to tell you guys that, but he really did. And that's why we call him Thunder. But, Jaylen was nominated for Homecoming King. There was a special needs young man named Michael that was also nominated as Homecoming King. Jaylen went out of his way to support Michael to be Homecoming King, and because he did so, he was nominated. Michael was nominated, became Homecoming King. You know what? Thunder, man, he's a great family. I love Thunder. We got a really good football player, and we got a really good young man.
Great human being. Tenacious football player. 5 technique, who plays to the whistle. That's what we're going to get. You can never have too many of these pass rushers. Fights through double teams. He's very mindful of the perimeter. Good job keeping contain out there. Again, tough for pass rushers to sometimes do that. Played to the field a lot in an odd front. He's explosive, but with great hands. When speed isn't enough, he uses the leverage game. He can dip the shoulder below the hands of the offensive tackle. He's strong. He's relentless. Chases down the pitch on the perimeter. You're talking about a kid that's 2.5, and chasing down perimeter pitches. So watch him push the offensive tackle like a blocking sled into the backfield. Saw him do it a handful of times on tape for a TFL. Very high football IQ. He can find the football. He reacts to motion to blow up sweeps, diagnoses things as they develop, can see screens coming, tracks the ball down with authority from the backside, big hits in the box. We're getting a complete person, a complete football player, a guy that can make plays and disrupt in the backfield. Any defense can use these guys.
Big motor. I really love having them. And I'll tell you what, Tony, this is a good class.
Yeah,
it's all character. It really is. And they got some defensive guys out there that really love to play the game.
Let's jump into an offensive lineman. Let's go to a young man by the name of Brandon Yates, 6'4", 285 pounds. He comes out of Middletown, Delaware, where he played at Liberty Baptist Academy. What's your evaluation?
Well, that's actually out there in the desert in Vegas. And, looking at him, I'd say the first thing I did was this. Going out there, who is it? It is Yadni Kajust. Look at him. I'm telling you, this guy, he's coming off. He is so athletic, gets it, and he likes to get guys, and he likes to throw them down at the end, but he comes off the ball. He's athletic. He moves his feet. Watch him hook right here. He hooks that defender, and then he throws him down. Look at that. You got to like that. This guy's a big one right here. Again, he takes the guy. Look at him throw him down right there.
That was nasty.
It's nasty. He has got some good stuff to him. I told Coach Crook when Yadni was a redshirt freshman, he was going to be starting and go on to the next level. Coach Crook looked at me and said, well, we'll see. He's got a lot of work. But this cat, I'm not saying that about Yadni, but he looks like Yadni. And he moves like Yadni. So we'll see where that comes. He's got a long ways to go before he becomes Yadni. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But, man, look at him.
Watch him in the run game. Hands inside. Technique's terrific. Defender drives him out of the running lane. Wolf talked about it. Bends his knees, drives through a defender. Good lining up when the target does pull. I can tell you how I know he's an offensive lineman. The kid was on Twitter complaining about all the articles listing him at 260 pounds. Say, what are you talking about? I'm 285. He's an O-lineman. Only an O-lineman would do that.
And he has a big can. I know I keep saying that, but he's got a big can.
Big can, and he wins the first step.
So when they back up and they beep, you know that they got big cans. That's what you like.
That's correct.
When they beep,
That is
back
correct.
up. All right, last one here now. Winston Wright is a 5'10" wide receiver. Slot guy?
He could be either. He played some on the perimeter, but again, when you talk to Coach Thompson, Michael Thompson, his high school coach, maybe Tony, we might have saved the best for last year. This kid's a dynamic playmaker, start and stop on a dime, great jab step and jump cut. His skill set makes him lethal in the screen game, so it makes it easy to find creative ways to get him the football. I know that Coach Brown is a high percentage pass game guy, so I could see him fitting right into that. He deployed double moves on routes to cater to his speed, so that worked well at the high school level. He's athletic enough to adjust to the football in flight. He's a physical short yards runner out of the wing. You'll see him run him on those jet sweeps out of the wing, and he's very physical with it. Another guy that can contribute in special teams. When you talk to Coach Thompson, a true student athlete. He's very versatile with the ball and without it. God-given vision. He talks about his ability to set up his cuts like nobody else and talks about how incredibly humble he is. He always appreciated, Wolf, the touches he did get. Could have been a 3-sport star, chose not to. Always working to get better. Has done a great job with his speed. The work he's put in pays off. Phenomenal athlete. He'll become a tremendous leader. And he said, the coach told me, Coach Thompson, I remember when he was a freshman watching him watch highlight tapes of Tavon Austin.
I was just going to say.
There you go.
I literally was just going to say that. The way that he sets his feet, the way that he sets his blocks, and the way that he's able to put his foot down on the ground and stop and go. I'm not going to say Tavon. I'm just saying it's similar. It's similar as
That's
far
blasphemous.
as
It reminds you.
Yeah, it reminds you of the ability to
The
start and
traits.
stop. The start and stop.
The start and
is
stop.
so important for great players.
What I really like about him is all he needs is a little crease. Just a little crease and he can make big plays. You give him a little bit of crease and he's gone. Start and stop, like you said. And, he had 700 yards rushing and more than 1,000 yards receiving. That's contributing a lot, and he's a big timer. I'm telling you, I'm going to have fun watching this guy. And he's Greek's lightning.
Yeah, I like it.
Coaches will always tell you that good vision beats speed and feet. He has all those things. He checks all those boxes.
Yeah, and you're wearing glasses. All right, so do stay with us. More coming up. Neil Brown's going to take the podium at 3:05. We'll get underway with him. So we invite you to stay right there. We'll take a break. We'll be back. We'll send it to Coach Brown in just a couple of minutes. Our coverage of 2019 Signing Day from the Pushkar Center continues after this from WVU Medicine.
We conquer mountains. But that's not why they call us mountaineers. It's because we don't let anything stand in our way. We build what's never been built, seek cures for the incurable, and go first into undiscovered frontiers. We are mountaineers, and impossible is just another mountain to climb.
The air feels different on fall Saturdays in West Virginia. Familiar roads lead us on early morning drives to a place where we feel alive. And traditions bring together a fierce fan base, united by the same passion: West Virginia football. As West Virginia's bank, we've been there, and we'll continue to be there. United Bank, proud to be united with the Mountaineers.
The joy of being the best is unsurpassed in the only conference where regular season champions are determined the right way. Where everyone plays everyone. A conference with no divisions. A conference where every game matters. Whether it's the rich history of intense rivalries or the excitement of the newest ones, the Big 12 Conference, unsurpassed.
Swing and a high drive. That's headed to deep right field. That ball is going. That ball is gone. A homer, a two-run homer for Darius Hill.
West Virginia baseball is right around the corner. Catch the Mountaineers in Big 12 action against Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Kansas, and TCU, along with games against rivals Pitt, Marshall, and Penn State. Season tickets start as low as $105, and mini packages start at just $20. Log on to WVUGame.com or call 1-800-WVU-GAME today.
Incredible discipline. Amazing accuracy. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The National Collegiate Men's and Women's Rifle Championships. March 8th and 9th at the WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets and secure your seats today.
What an honor and what a privilege it is to stand before you today as the head football coach at West Virginia University. I could not be more excited to be your head football coach. We're going to work, we're going to compete, we're going to have fun. At the end of the day, we're going to make you proud. Let's go Mountaineers.
And we welcome you back, everyone. Our National Signing Day show, at least from this broadcast location, is about to make the transition. Head coach Neil Brown will be going to the podium in just a minute. That was a fast 2 hours. I don't know about you. And if you have been with us the entire 2 hours, you need to really time manage better. But anyway, overall, I guess the biggest theme coming out of this is not necessarily that there was a ton of guys that were signed today, but the fact that they signed and kept from what they had in December. That to me is the biggest storyline.
Absolutely, it's impressive when you talk to the people that know these guys. These are young men that are of character, and I've talked to the coach, and Jen, I'm sure you did too when you talked to the coaches. They kept saying this is not coaches speak. These are men of character, young men of character, and that they're leaders. And when you look at it, they're all team captains, they're all leaders, they're all doing extra work to be better. I mean, that is just impressive knowing that you got a good group of guys, a good solid base.
Retention, I think that's the word of the day. We retained what we were after in December. Left a couple spots open. It's a work in progress, Very passing grade.
A reminder before we go to the podium here with Coach Brown that we're on the radio this evening from 7 until 8 o'clock on the Mountaineer Sports Network, a full 1-hour recap of today's signing date, and we'll hear once again from some WVU assistant coaches. We will also be hearing from Coach Neil Brown, and that's 7 until 8 o'clock tonight. All right, what do you say now? We headed back into the WVU team room. Neil Brown's taking the podium. Take it away here, Coach.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Exciting day. Not your normal signing day like in years past, but an exciting day. It's been a hectic first month, but we've accomplished a lot. Top priorities for us was really twofold. Number one is developing relationships with our players that are currently on our roster. And second thing was solidifying those guys that signed in December. And a lot of credit to our staff. And when I say staff, I'm not talking about just our assistant coaches, but everybody that's involved in recruiting. When a young person comes on our campus, we're able to hold on to all 18 guys that signed, that were part of that December signing class, and had little to no attrition on our current football team. So a lot of credit to all those individuals. Our second priority was really to fill some slots of what we felt like were immediate needs on our current roster. Relationships and recruiting are critical, and if you look at the guys we've added over not only today but transfer quarterback, those are individuals we had long relationships with. And today's about the signees. It's about this recruiting class. I know you all have a lot of questions about staffing, about current players, and all those type of things. I promise you we're going to give you an opportunity to ask those, but today is going to be about recruiting. So I appreciate y'all being here, and with that, I'm going to open up to questions about this recruiting class.
You'll start with those 16 December signees, and do you almost have to re-recruit them? How did you approach, keeping them in the fold?
Yeah, well, the way we approached it is look at them as new recruits, without a doubt. We want people that want to be here. We thought it was critical. It's a unique situation. I think it's only happened one other time at the Power 5 level. I think when Kevin Sumlin was hired at Arizona, he had a similar situation in the fact that a group of players signed in December under a previous coach, and then he took the job after that signing day. So not a lot of precedent. So what we did is we went about re-recruiting those guys. And either myself or someone on our staff went and visited each one of those student athletes, and then we were able to host those guys through the NCAA rules on a second official visit for most of them. And so just by building a relationship, not only with them, but with their families or the people that are really important to them, they felt comfortable with West Virginia. They felt comfortable with a lot of the pieces of why they chose West Virginia. We're still here. We're still common with our staff, and they just needed some reassurance and just to be around and spend time with our staff. So that's how we approached it. And like I said, a lot of credit to our staff. We were able to keep all those guys, and I'm excited about them. I thought the previous staff did a really good job identifying talent, and not only on the playing field, but also academically, and these are good kids.
Noticed you got 3 defensive players. Was that coincidental, or was that by need, or how did you determine 3 guys?
So the way we kind of started this is, as you meet with your players and you watch a little bit of video, really honestly not a ton. Had some of our young coaches put together basically kind of a highlight, low light tape on the guys that were currently on our team. So tried to get a vision of what some needs were. And we need some, we signed a lot of receivers in the December signing date. We're in a little bit odd situation in our defensive backfield where only lost a couple, but we got a lot of guys that are going to be seniors. So we felt like we needed to add some guys in the defense secondary, and we did. And then defensive linemen are something you can't have enough defensive linemen. So I thought it was critical too. Y'all can do the math. We've got 3 spots left open in this class. I think the mistake that a lot of people make when you take a job, when you make a transition and you're trying to do your first recruiting class, is you really reach, or you sign guys that you don't know about. The recruiting process is so long now. It's upwards of 2 years, and part of that 2-year process, there's usually quite a few in-person evaluations where you see a kid practice, or you see a kid play, or even you have him in camp and you see him in live evaluations. and you get to know them on multiple campus visits. Well, you don't have that opportunity when you take, especially in a different geographic region. So we were careful. We do have 3 open spots. You guys are going to learn about this with us. Is I'm always looking for ways to improve our roster. You know, we have 2 signing days, but we're always looking to improve our roster. And I think it's important that you have some open spots where if something happens, you're able to add a critical piece.
Have you decided what needs that may still be there where you'll be looking in particular with these last 3?
Yeah, well, I think that we have 2, and I'm careful how to answer this because we've only really had 1 team workout with our team. We worked out yesterday morning. We're going to work out tomorrow morning as well. Can't do any necessarily football-specific work with them, but we do get an opportunity to see how they follow directions, see what kind of leadership we have, how do they change directions, what kind of explosiveness do they have, and some different agility drills. I do know this just from a scholarship number standpoint. We have some depth issues on the offensive line and the defensive line.
Coach, when you got here, you said you were going to really focus on West Virginia and focus on the region. How did you hit the ground running on that, and how successful did you think you were?
Well, I think a lot of that, and we're going to do that. Whether it shows in this recruiting class or not, it's to be determined, honestly. We're excited about Kerry Martin. You know, I think he's a great kid and really looking forward from Capital, really looking forward to working with him, and glad he's part. He's actually an early enrollee, so he's already here. But a lot of it was just getting in schools in the state. You know, if you look at it, and I think you can talk to high school coaches in the state, we were able to get into a ton of high schools here in the state, develop relationships with those guys. That's something that we'll continue to do so. And, you know, whatever happens later today, and we've made a pretty valiant run.
When you sit with your staff and you evaluate how you did recruiting, obviously this class is to be determined. You don't know that. When you go back and you look back, is there a target number? Like how many contributors did you look at to gauge how successful you were? Well,
you want to obviously. No, I think you better be better than that. Yeah, we better be better than half. I think what you do is you hear people, and throughout college football today, you know, however many Division I coaches are, they're having these press conferences, and you're gonna hear, "Hey, we're excited about them, best class," and you know all those superlatives. And a lot of times you feel like that is the correct answer, but the truth of the matter won't be known for 3 or 4 years down the road. I think what you do is you have to have critical evaluations. So what we do is we have a staff retreat in the spring, so we go and that's one thing is we do is we evaluate the last 3 or 4 recruiting classes. Now, obviously, we only have 1 to evaluate. We won't have a whole lot of data to do that on. But you have to constantly evaluate what went right, but also what went wrong. And I think you look at the geographic fit. You look if you take any at risk. You know, did it work out? Okay, what went wrong? But I think you got to constantly evaluate that. And there is a science to it, without a doubt.
You know, trying to evaluate the current players to assess future needs. How much more difficult is that because you haven't seen them doing things that you might change? Well,
you get a good grasp of what they can do athletically, and that's the biggest thing. You know, the schematic changes are, you know, I think you'll have an opportunity to ask Vic the same thing. And offensively, defensively, and special teams, we're going to put our kids in the best situation to be successful. So whatever their strengths are, we're going to steer our schemes toward fitting their strengths. But really, that's why that we have 3 open spots, quite frankly. We could have gone out and used those. There's probably players that we could have signed. But I think you got to be real careful because we want to give ourselves the best opportunity to win next fall. And I think we're better served by holding on those spots till we see what our true product is in spring ball.
Your last staff leaned heavily on various forms of transfers. You didn't seem to have a ton of those at Troy. What's your philosophy on grad transfers, which you've already got one here?
Yeah,
JUCOs and just regular transfers.
So I think that you're always looking to improve your roster, which I already said. I think transfers is one way. I think junior college recruiting done the correct way can really be fruitful. And what I mean by that, I think that there's a couple different ways you recruit junior college. One way is you realize you have a need in the fall and you just go out, whether it's a couple weeks in the December signing period or a couple weeks in January, and you try to just go find the best player and you don't really know a whole lot about them. Or you go through and you treat it like high school recruiting where you get to know them over the course of a year. A lot of times you track them in high school and then you follow them to whatever junior college they're at, and you have a long relationship with them and you understand, why they're there. That's the way we choose to do it. Quite frankly, I think if you look at our success rate at Troy with junior college transfers, it was extremely high. Now we've got to figure out how this university works. But I think when you're recruiting junior college, you have to have a longer relationship than just a couple weeks. And I think it's the same when you're looking at any transfer. Austin Kendall is a prime example. So we're excited to have Austin. Austin is a guy that I had a previous relationship with his family. We recruited Austin when I was at the University of Kentucky as the offense coordinator. His brother Ryan played for me my last year there as a receiver at the University of Kentucky, knew his mom and dad. So when he became available, that made sense. I knew him personally, knew his family. And I think there has to be a relationship with those transfers. You just don't take them because they're available.
Was it from a depth standpoint to bring in a graduate transfer with Trey playing baseball and lately maybe missing some practice?
I think that was as big a factor as anything. We only had 2 on scholarship, so I got a lot of trust in Jack Alston, and I like Trey. Trey's playing baseball, so his availability in the spring, depending on how baseball's going, could be limited. And we got to have more guys in that room. I think that's college football. There's so many, the game's played so fast in this league. You play so many plays. You better have at least three quarterbacks in that room who are capable of playing. So that was probably need number one, is we needed to add a quarterback. And I thought we were very fortunate to get a guy in Austin who I feel like has been really well schooled, played in a couple different high school programs where the level of coaching is at a high level. He was with Lincoln the last couple years, and I have a lot of respect for him and his ability to teach. He sat in a room with 2 Heisman Trophy winners. I think that's important. He's got a quick release, really strong arm. He can create plays with his feet. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a runner, but I think he's a good enough athlete that he creates plays with his feet. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great competition as we move in the spring into fall camp.
What is it about these 3 men that you felt that you wanted here?
Yeah, I'll just talk about all 3 of these guys individually. So if you look at Jordan Jefferson, Jordan JJ is from Navarre, Florida. And a guy that Navarre, so you'll know geographically, is about 2 hours away from Troy. So he's a kid that we've really known since he was a freshman, end of his freshman year, going to a sophomore year in high school. He's a big physical thing that I like about him. He's got a calm demeanor. He's never too high. He's never too low. Great family. His dad, you'll see him. His dad looks like he needs to be playing. He could play some D-line for us right now too. He's a strong guy, but a great family, and he got better every year. If you look at his junior film, it's really good. Look at his senior year, and you understand why his recruiting really exploded like it did, especially in the last 6 weeks. So long relationship. We've had him in camp. We've seen him multiple times live. Our defensive line coach, Jordan Leslie, was his lead recruiter, and he's a guy that I think has an opportunity to be a plus player on the defensive line in this league. And he's versatile. He can play nose or the 3 technique. If you look at Tavian or Tay Mayo, he's from Lee County, Georgia. At Troy, we had two Lee County guys on our team, 2 really good players from Lee County. Vic Coney, our defensive coordinator, he recruited that school at Troy. They've won, I think, back-to-back state championships. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. Dean Fabrizio's the head coach. They play at a high level. We've known about Tay for a long time. I think he actually watched a couple games of ours at Troy when he came to watch his friends. And so we knew about him, and the logo switch was very effective. And he had a relationship with the previous staff. He'd actually taken an official visit here, so he liked West Virginia. So we were able to close that late, and that was an important pickup for us. And if you look at, we're really rising seniors now at that corner position, and he's athletic. He can run. He's going to have an opportunity to come in and compete right away, and he has a chance to be a starter here for several years. And then the last guy is a young man by the name of Roisin Lin. And Roisin is 6'4 plus, almost 6'5". He's got a ton of skill set. He has as much upside as anybody in this class. Played a lot of receiver and DB in high school. We're going to start him off in the secondary as a safety. As you all know, you can't have too many DBs in the Big 12. He's a guy that has length. And we can try as hard as we want to coach it, but you either have length or you don't, and he's big, and he's long, and he has an opportunity to play that center field position on defense and really cover a lot of ground in the back end. So excited about him.
Curious, of the guys that you inherited in December, did you have any prior relationships with any of them?
Yeah,
so you had to introduce yourself to all of them.
Yeah, no, the guys in the Southeast, at Troy it was a unique recruiting. We really only recruited about a 4.5 hour radius, so that's unique in college football. I mean, probably one of the most unique situations, really. But we did. Most of these guys from the Southeast, like if it's Taj Alston, who's already here. We knew about him at Cowan, really productive player. Jared Bartlett is a kid that we identified a year ago in spring as a guy that could be kind of a Mike linebacker, edge, rusher. So we liked him. We saw him. I think Jordan Leslie watched him practice last spring. If you talk about going down to Tony Mathis, I laughed when I called Tony after getting this job. I said, man, most of the time players come to coaches. You know what I mean? Like this coach had to go to the player because Tony was like our number one running back guy at Troy forever. And, of course, he got multiple Power 5 offers, so we didn't have a whole lot of success getting him at Troy. But he's a guy that I love the way he ran, so we had a relationship with him. Obviously knew his game. Drayshawn Miller, a corner that was from Kennesaw, that went junior college, who's here now on campus. We'd known about him when he was in high school. Winston Wright is a guy that we saw multiple times live I think he was at 2 different satellite camps I was at over the summer. So we knew about him, and we had a relationship with him as well. So several of these guys, Nick Troy Fortune's another guy that we knew about being in the Southeast. So a lot of these guys we did. We had relationships, either myself personally or our assistant coaches had a relationship with those guys. So that was definitely a positive.
Guys you didn't know, how did you go about assessing them to make sure they fit what you want to do?
Yeah, well, it wasn't as much about assessing as I felt like our role was they'd already made decisions, and I tried to put myself in their shoes, honestly, is, okay, here's a young man. I always talk about in recruiting. Last night I talked to all these guys that we're going to sign today, and I told them, I said, hey, tomorrow's a big day. It's a culmination of your high school career, but also it's just the start of your college career. And you kind of flip the page, and you kind of go into what's next mode. What's in the past is in the past. It's kind of what's next. And all these guys that signed in December had already flipped that page. And so, you try to put yourself in their shoes and understand that their whole world just got shook up. Coaching change had happened. They didn't ask for it. So what we did is we just went – to me it wasn't about us making a decision. It was about us investing in that relationship because they'd already made the decision. Athletically, I think all of them fit what we want to do. It was about making sure that they felt comfortable with the situation here. Now, we weren't going to hold any of them hostage. We wanted them all to be here. But we wanted to make sure that they wanted to be here, and we gave them that opportunity by not only coming to visit, but also us going to their territory as well.
Given your statement about where you recruited at Troy in that footprint, were some of your assistant coaching hires based on, knowing that you're going to have to expand that a little bit here?
Well, we are going to have to expand, and I think, and we can talk about this here. We'll do something media-wise when we kind of announce the assistant coaches as a group. But I think what you'll see from a recruiting philosophy here is going to be, all the states that touch West Virginia, and all the states that touch West Virginia, we want to have a really strong recruiting presence. And this is going to be everybody within our staff is going to have a primary recruiting area within that geographic footprint. And then we'll go in to the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, probably into some Mississippi junior colleges and some Kansas junior colleges where we have really strong relationships and a good brand. West Virginia has a good brand, and then we're obviously well known from a coaching standpoint as well.
I know you made the junket through West Virginia. How soon will you go out and identify the best schools in Pittsburgh and get in there and meet the coaches in D.C. and the surrounding
I tried to do that in January. As we tried to be as efficient as possible as we made through in January. I think I was out every day but 2 that legally could be. Weather got us one day. But got in several high schools here in West Virginia, spent a day in Pittsburgh, spent 2 in D.C., I didn't get into Ohio as much this time as I will when I have the next opportunity, but we did. You know, we were all in that footprint as much as we possibly could while trying to chase the signees and going to see the guys that signed in December as well. You know, that's the thing. Like, people don't think about it, but really the probably the biggest disadvantage of getting into a situation late is in January. What most of our competitors are doing is they're probably going to sign 2 to 5 today at the most, but they're 2020 and 2021 recruiting. Okay. Well, what we did, we tried to get as much as in many schools and chasing as many 20 and 21 kids as we could. But our primary function was to make sure the December guys were in good shape and trying to secure the signees that we did sign. So we're a little bit, you know, as crazy as it sounds, we're sitting here in February and we're probably a little bit behind on that, definitely on the 20 class, but even the 21 class.
And how different is it to be out from under the shadow of Alabama and Auburn and your recruiting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll say that. It's not something that Troy really thought about a whole lot. You know, it was kind of what it was. You know, weren't necessarily going to go head to head and beat the Alabama and the Auburns. That what we were trying to do is those schools were recruiting nationally, so we were trying to really fit and make us have a really strong geographic footprint right there in Alabama. But I think being the state here and having a strong brand within this geographic footprint is critical. We feel like that we can compete and win against anybody. And, you know, if we do our job and we're diligent and build relationships, and that we should have as good a chance as anybody in West Virginia and all the states that surround it.
And Neil, this isn't a staff question, but it kind of is. Off the field people, you've added a bunch of, I don't know what label you would use, but like support people for recruiting and on-campus stuff. And it's quite a few, but I'm just curious your philosophy for that and what they do and what needs they fit for you.
Yeah, so again, we'll probably answer. I'll do a better job of answering this later, okay? And not trying to dodge your question by any means. I think what we're trying to do is be competitive with the people we're going against. And recruiting is so, and you know this, right? So recruiting it's such a long process now, such an in-depth process that I think you need multiple people. You need a recruiting division almost within your staff, and that's what we're trying to establish here. We've got we've hired some, we made some hires. We've got some additions to make, and hopefully we'll do that here in the near future.
With as much experience as Vic has over the decades, what do those evaluation conversations look like? 'Cause I'm sure there's been a player where this is a guy, and you were like, as the final say, maybe a little wishy-washy. Yeah. What do those evaluations look like as you guys discuss?
Yeah, there's a lot of trust involved. Honestly, you know, we've been together now going on 5 years. If you look at his history and the amount of NFL players he's produced and the production he's had across the board at all the positions within his defensive scheme at all his stops, so there's a lot of trust there. You know, feel like that as a staff we've done a good job evaluating. You know, even before I was a head coach, as a coordinator and things like that, we feel like we've done a good job of identifying talent. You know, I always talk about there's 3 things that you got to do. Number one, you got to be good enough as a player. You know, because when you're watching tape, if the kid's not good enough, you don't ever get past that. You know, it's either yes or no. So yes, he is. Then it goes to an academic evaluation. Can he be successful? Is he going to be a qualifier? Can he be successful at the college level? So if the answer is no to that, you stop. If the answer is yes to that, then you go to the character question. And then can he make it within our program? Is he the type of guy we want representing our program? So if the answer to those 3 things is yes, and it's a schematic fit, then that's the guy we go on. But I do, if Vic feels strongly, we've had our disagreements. You know, as the head coach, I got final say. But if he feels really good about a prospect and their evaluation, then he's definitely heard.
Curious about that. What is your approval process? Do you go the position coach, the coordinator? How does that go about?
Yeah, so it's a thinning out. You know, what it does is you got the initial evaluation, and then we're going to be an area recruiting staff, okay? And what I mean by that is everybody's going to have geographic areas, and you're going to go through your area, find the top prospects within that area. You'll be the main recruiter, and then the position coach will be involved as secondary recruiter, and as the head coach, you're always involved, okay? And that's the way we go about it. And I'll have final say. Obviously, I want those position coaches to have a lot of input between in their rooms. I always tell me, don't complain about the people in your room. Now, you chose them, Don't come complaining to me about not having players if you chose them, right? So that's how we'll go about it.
You work the numbers yourself? Or
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll work with Brian Bennett, who you'll meet if you haven't, our director of player personnel, and we'll work and figure out those numbers and what they look like.
Not necessarily a signing day question, but what's your philosophy on early official visits?
Probably too early to tell, honestly, and don't have a feel for them just yet. I want to kind of get here in the spring, and get a feel for what's a spring game crowd look like, because I think that can be a huge benefit if we're well supported on the spring game, okay, which is going to be April 13th at 1 o'clock. If anybody's there you go. But it's and then how in the summer, I think you'll see fewer of them in this initial recruiting cycle until I get a good feel for everything that's here in Morgantown.
You mentioned you have 3 spots left. Definitely fill all 3 scholarships, and do they have to be immediate need guys?
No, it's to be determined. Yeah, we want to try to find the 3 best players. If we don't, then we'll push them over, and that means we can sign up to 28 the next class.
Jefferson's 6'4", 300. I imagine there's not too many of them who were kind of highly recruited close to signing day.
Yeah.
When
it got interesting here late, even as late as last night. Yeah.
Yeah. So the urgency that's involved there, but also if it's relief is the right word, having at least a relationship where you're not coming in as like a scavenger at the last second. Balance there for you.
It was. I think that's really what got us over the hump, and I think there was there was a lot of trust level there between Coach Leslie and his family, and myself, just because we've known him for a long time, and that was a definite benefit. The other thing too is you go through recruiting, so many decisions are made off junior tape, and what happens, especially late in the process, whether other schools lose people or things like that, they go back and really evaluate the senior tape, or in coaching transitions they go back, and I think people went back and watched his senior tape and were like, wow, here's a kid that's one of the best, if not the best defensive lineman that's available.
What about preferred walk-ons? What's your philosophy on that? What do you see happening?
Well, I think if you look at our roster, Tony, and that's a great question, first of all, because I always feel like this is as a guy that went through that route at the University of Kentucky and earned a scholarship is I think those guys are really the glue of your football team. And there's a lot of passion in that, especially guys that are in state that aren't a preferred walk-on opportunity or just walk-on in general. I think you can go through our roster right now and you can see a lot of evidence of that. Guys that have really worked their way up, and whether they're being successful offense, defense, or special teams. So what we're doing is we're identifying those guys. There's some guys that have committed to us as preferred walk-ons. We're excited about that. Can't talk about them today. But that's something, our walk-ons here, if you look at the success of the walk-ons at West Virginia, that's a legacy that we want to continue for sure.